IB Nation, welcome back to another edition of the Irish Breakdown podcast. Hope you guys are ready to rock and roll today because we certainly are. We're fired up for today's show because, well, there's lots of reasons, but a big reason why is Trevor's. We get a chance to talk Notre Dame football again. And number two, because the Irish have a big game coming up tomorrow. Certainly an opportunity for Notre Dame to get their season kind of, I don't say on track because, you know, they're a 3-1 team ranked number 16 in the country, right? But it more so a team that you look at it and say, this is a team that's got a chance to get back on track from a preseason expectation standpoint. I think a win over a top 20 Louisville team certainly goes a long way towards boosting Notre Dame's resume. You know, they'll go up in the rankings. It also, I think, can get some confidence going in this team and hopefully among the fan base. Which is pretty down right now, and hopefully this team can give this fan base something to be excited about moving forward. It'd be great to go into the bye week with a big win under their belt, but it's going to be a pretty miserable bye week if they aren't able to play to their potential. So a lot of that going on, and there's a lot of questions about this team, about college football, man. So I am ready to rock and roll. Trevor, I believe this is your first mailbag on this side of the
Sure
conversation. So let's ready to rock and roll. You guys all know the drill. Put an MB before the question, so that way we know it's a question and not just part of the normal chat. Or put a mailbag emoji on there. And if you want your question to get shot to the top, go ahead and put a super chat. We actually have 4 super chats to get started here, and one of them is a little inside joke, so we'll bring that one up first. But and again, MB or a mailbag emoji, or go ahead and do a super chat. And as soon as we see the super chat, we'll put it at the top of the rotation. So Trevor, my man, thanks for being with me today. You ready to rock and roll?
Let's do it. I'm excited.
All right, we got a super chat from D Troll Hunter. Thank you so much for D Troll Hunters for the super chat here, and let's rock and roll.
You got it. Buy, sell, hold. Notre Dame rips up Louisville like T-guns trying to get out of New Jersey while eating a box of crayons, hauling a load of salty Virginia peanuts to the Great One.
Okay. So obviously T-Guns is a truck driver, so we appreciate what he does. He's a vital piece to our infrastructure in this country, so we appreciate that. You know, look, Trevor, I mean, obviously this isn't the buy, sell, hold part's an inside joke between he and I. So the question, I'm gonna buy it out of optimism, but here's the way I look at this game. I have the prediction to be close. I have it 27-20. Trevor, you have it being competitive, but Notre Dame kind of pulling away late, I believe, per our conversation yesterday. This is a good Louisville football team, and I think right now they're a better football team than Texas A&M right now. In regard to what Notre Dame will face. Now, by the end of the year, could Texas A&M be better than Louisville? Yes. But I think as far as when they played, Notre Dame is like, if A&M's ripping it up in November, that team will be better than what the team that Notre Dame played. That's just, it's okay to say that without Notre Dame should also be better in November. But the point is Louisville now, in my opinion, is a better team than A&M, and they pose a more dangerous threat than A&M did because they actually have firepower on offense. Having said that, this Notre Dame should still be the better team, Trevor. I mean, that's the reality of it is, yes, Louisville's very good. I think the world of Jeff Brom. If Marcus Freeman up and retired tomorrow and cashed in and said, hey, my wife and I want to go live down in the Bahamas for the rest of my life, and Notre Dame needed a new head football coach, I'd be like, hey, give that cat down in Louisville a call. You know what I mean? But like, that's why I say if he retired, because I'm happy with Marcus Freeman being the head football coach. I'm just trying to give you an idea of, I think the world of Jeff Brom as a football coach, and especially as an offensive mind. And, look, you're going to have to earn it. They got more talent on offense this year than they did last year. Their defense is still really good. They're not going to be afraid of Notre Dame because they kicked Notre Dame's butt last year. So this is a big opportunity. And I think it's going to be a competitive game, but I won't be shocked if the Notre Dame offense figures it out, if they finally get going, if Notre Dame's capable of ripping Louisville up. They are. I'm not predicting it. I'm not saying it's going to happen, but it's certainly possible. There's no reason to think that it can't happen because still think Notre Dame has the better roster. It just is going to come down to this, Trevor. Can Riley Leonard and the offense create a balanced attack and go at Louisville on the ground and through the air? If they can do that and have success doing that, I don't know that this game is going to be overly competitive. When it comes to predicting that, I'm in show me mode. I'm not going to predict this offense goes off until they do it more than once. Because right now, this offense has had one great game. Think about this. They've scored less than 30 points in 3 of their 4 games this season. So I'd be silly for me to predict that they're going to score a bunch and rip this team up. Capable of it, but just not something that I can predict until we see it. That's my thoughts on this. So, I'll buy it just because I want to be optimistic, and it's a Friday, and I'm in a great mood and all that. But, they got a lot to prove, Notre Dame does.
I'll buy it as well because on paper, Notre Dame should. They have the capability to rip up anybody on their schedule. What makes this matchup so interesting is we talked about it all week. Texas A&M was a team who is a very well-coached team. We knew that they were going to be extremely disciplined, but they did not have the athletes that Louisville currently has. And what makes this matchup so interesting is Louisville can hurt you from many different ways because of how athletic they are, specifically on the offensive side of the ball. For Notre Dame, one reason why they were ranked so high, because I think people forget, Notre Dame was ranked 7th to start out the preseason and beat Texas A&M and moved up to 5th, right? So Notre Dame has the ability on paper to compete with anybody in the country. They can win those grinded out games, have the ability to win those grinded out games. They also, if a game turns into a shootout, Notre Dame has the roster capable to go back and forth with whatever team, but it's just frustrating because we have yet to see it, right? So I think that's why this game on Saturday is going to be so important. A win is going to be huge, especially to give us a lot of great things to talk about during the bye week. I would much rather on Saturday during the post-game show talk about all of the fun adjustments Notre Dame can make moving forward in a positive light to continue growth and continue getting better instead of these are the changes they have to make if they want to start winning football games.
Yeah, hopefully they figure it out. Because my thing is right now the Purdue game's the anomaly of this season. My hope is that we come to find out, no, that's actually what Notre Dame's capable of when they play their game. That's what I hope we find out on Saturday. It won't look like 66-7 against a team like this, but it might look like 34-17 or something like that. That kind of game. Because that's what ripping Louisville up is to me. It's winning 34-20, 34-17. It's not 50-10 because I think this Louisville team's way too good for that, in my opinion. But we'll see.
Super chat from John A1. Thank you, John. In games, Notre Dame opponents choose to play single high press man. Who would you put in the 2 deep wide receiver spots for the field and boundary positions and why?
Well, I don't know that it's going to look a whole lot different for me than it does now. Obviously, I'm of Chris Mitchell and KK Smith as my field guys. You know what? Here's what I would actually do. I would put Chris Mitchell or KK Smith, whoever I feel is prepared the best. Right now, I'd go Chris Mitchell because he's more proven, and I'd put Jaden Harrison out there at Z at the field slot because I think Jaden Harrison plays the fastest right now, and I think I would rather him be the 5'10" guy out there than Jordan Faison because Jordan Faison's more quick and elusive and get open, that type of guy, as opposed to a burner that's just going to run past people, where I think Jaden Harrison is more of that player. And then I'd have Jordan Faison be my number 2 in the slot behind Jaden Greathouse. And then to the boundary, again, I'd have Bo Collins there, and I'd still go Jaden Thomas because if the team's going to play a lot of single high man, I want to do a lot of movement and mixing up my alignments. And when Notre Dame goes into their 2-by-1 with 2 tights backside, or 2-by-2 with the 2 receivers out of 12 personnel, 2 receivers right, 2 tight ends left. The boundary receivers now, way they've done it is in the slot to the field, which is a great way to get Jaden Thomas into that position. When they're out of 11 personnel and they end up in a 3-by-1, then Jaden Thomas is still he's now the number 3. And so they've done a lot of things where they'll go 3-by-1 with the tight end backside either attached and sort of like what I call a trio alignment, or with the tight end as the boundary receiver in sort of a trips alignment. I would do things like that. See how they're going to respond. Are they going to put a linebacker out there on Mitchell Evans? If so, there's some things I can do in that matchup. If they're going to keep a cornerback side, that means I'm going to have a safety or a linebacker matched up on one of my 3 receivers to the right. So, doing things like that is something I would do, Trevor. I don't know that there's this magic bullet type of thing from an alignment standpoint where you're going to change. You put this player there, and then all of a sudden it changes things outside of maybe putting Jaden Harrison outside. But, I think the answer isn't so much changing who the personnel is. I think the answer is more changing how you attack teams to do that. And one of the things they did against Purdue that was so effective that I hope that they continue against other teams that play a lot of man. And I don't know that Louisville's going to, they play a decent amount of man, but they also will mix up a lot of zone action in there too. But if they're playing a lot of man, get on the move. Like just a lot of shifts, a lot of motions, zippers, crossing motions, all that type of stuff, just like they did against Purdue to get them chasing and to get more free releases. And, I would do more things like that, do more levels, get them chasing, things like that. Those are things I'd much rather see. So like right now, Notre Dame does a lot of smash and things like that where, against man, they'll have a hitch outside. You know what I would love to see against that is kind of zipper motion that thing, bring that guy on a cross and just have an ISO cornerback from your slot where now he's matched up in a, if they're going to run the corner with the crosser, you've now got that guy's in a one-on-one, no potential for an underneath coverage jump of that corner route. It's just one-on-one. If they chase and it's man, we're going to bang that corner route over top. There's things like that I would rather see than necessarily changing who's where outside of a minor flip of Jaden Harrison and KK Smith. And I honestly would probably have 3 guys playing there. I would find ways to get KK Smith on the field, even if it was in a boundary look as sort of a speed group. Like I would at least for one series of game come out with Chris Mitchell at Z, Jaden Harrison at the slot, and KK Smith at the boundary, and just say, we're going fast. We're going to push the tempo, and we're going to get them. We're running crossers, overs, chasers, levels, and go balls with this trio. Because you got 3 guys that reportedly run high 4.3, low 4.4s on your field. I think that could put teams in a bind. That stuff I want to see them do more of is like, hey, we've gone big at receiver. Let's go fast. And then mix things up of how you attack. Because you can, out of that in a 2x2, Trevor, you can have your tight end attached and your boundary guys off the ball. And then you can move him around. He can be in a movement package. There's no reason not to do stuff like that, in my opinion.
I'm with you. I'm not going to add much more depth into what you provided. I'm with you, Brian. I don't know if it's as much the personnel groupings. It's what you're doing with the personnel groupings that you're putting on the field. And I do believe that Notre Dame and Mike Denbrock need to be a little bit more creative with the type of speed that they're putting on the field, because that's a huge advantage that we all as fans heard about all offseason about how fast this team was and how they could push the tempo and push the pace downfield. So to answer the super chat, too deep at the boundary, I'm rotating Bo Collins and Jaden Thomas. And at the field position, I'm putting either Chris Mitchell or KK Smith. I'm not doing much different than what they're doing now. So I'm with you.
Yeah, I don't think personnel is my issue as much as how that personnel is being utilized. And that's part of learning your football team early in the season. Remember, Al Golden struggled early on, I felt, in 2022 with how to use his personnel. And the longer the season went on, the better they got. And the same thing happened with Marcus Freeman in 2021, where he was trying to run kind of what he did at Cincinnati, and then he had to adjust his personnel, or didn't adjust his personnel, just how he used the personnel. And by November, that defense was locking people down. So it's not always about changing personnel. Sometimes it's about, okay, let's make sure we're using the personnel we have in a way that allows them to maximize their ability. And it takes time to learn that, because you may think something's going to work in practice. Hey, we've been banging this route in practice all off season, but then we get the games and we can't hit it for whatever reason. There needs to be an adjustment period, and that's what they're going into. And that's why at the end of the day with this game, Trevor, I was talking to a buddy of mine earlier. I said, look, I don't care if it's 13-10 or 40-3. Just win. Like, go into the bye week with a win, figure stuff out, self-scout, get yourselves mentally ready. And then you've got three games coming up before your next bye against teams that are just, none of them are going to be as good as the one you're facing now, where you can hopefully kind of get right a little bit. Good teams, don't get me wrong. Stanford and Georgia Tech and Navy are all playing better right now than maybe they were last year. But they're games that you can go out there and figure yourself out and go play ball.
Kind of feels like those Stanford games in the mid-20 teens, in 2012 and 2014, the final scores were, those 14-10s and the 13-10s. It feels like that. And I guess it also doesn't help that there's rain in the forecast on Saturday too, to even make it feel more like that.
Yeah.
But I hear you. Definitely one of those got to win situations.
Yeah. Just win, baby. This is definitely one of those games. Definitely one of those games.
Yep.
All right, here we go.
Super chat from Aiden Benami. Thank you. Who you got? Rapid fire. Brian Driscoll does not bet. Miami minus 17.5. Clemson minus 21. Oklahoma +1. UCF minus 14. Nebraska minus 10. Iowa State minus 16. IU minus 7. And IU going 5-0.
All right, so I don't bet, and I'm not going to advise people to bet. So I'm not going to answer this question from the standpoint of take the points, but I'll just say this. I'm going to tell you, if I was making a score prediction for this game, would the final score be more than that? So how's that? Does that sound fair? Does that sound like a something that is agreeable to people? So here's what I would do. Miami, if I was making a prediction, I would predict that Miami wins by more than 17 points is what I would predict, to be honest with you. I've been very disappointed in this Virginia Tech team so far this season. They lost on the road to Vanderbilt. They just got beat at home by Rutgers. That's an inexcusable loss for a team that's in now, year 3 of a head coach's tenure. Had the high expectations they had coming into this season. They've not been able to take their quarterback to the next level. I think he's actually regressed a little bit. So I'm not loving what I'm seeing from Virginia Tech. They were a sleeper team for me come the season. Been a total disappointment so far for me in that. Clemson 21 against Stanford. This is I would probably not predict them to win by more than 21. I think they'll win. I think they'll win easily. Actually, let's do one at a time, Trevor, and then you either agree or if you would go different directions. So first of all, Miami, if you were making a score prediction, would it be Miami more than 17 or less than 17?
I'm taking Miami more.
Yeah,
for sure.
Clemson, I think, wins. I think they win convincingly. I could see something like a 42-24 game, a 35-17 game, 35-14 is about as close as I could get. So like right around that 21-point mark. But Stanford's battled so far this year, Trevor, and obviously the game that they lost, they were very competitive against TCU. Only lost by a touchdown at home. They went on the road and beat Syracuse. Now they're going on the road to play Clemson. Clemson's a different animal than what either one of those teams are. So I think Clemson wins big. I don't know that I would go more than 21 big, although I go through that and I start thinking about that Stanford offensive line against this Clemson defensive line would make me a little nervous. It would make me a little nervous. So I'd probably predict around a 20 to 21 point margin. If I'm going to be wrong, I feel like I'm going to be wrong in that it'll be by more than that. I don't know that I'm going to be wrong by less than that. So my prediction, I guess, would probably be 17 to 20. And if I'm wrong, I think I'm wrong on the end of it's an even a bigger blowout. I mean, because this is tough too. Stanford's making their second straight East Coast trip. And that's not easy. That's definitely not easy. They got a little bit of extra time because they played on Friday last week, but it's still second straight. They flew to New York last week. They're flying to South Carolina this week. That's going to be the hard part for this football team. So I don't think it's going to be close.
I don't think it's going to be close either. 21 is a lot, man.
Mm-hmm.
That is a lot to be a pretty well-coached Stanford team who does have talent.
Mm-hmm.
I'm with you. I see it more in the 14 to 17 range. I don't know if I see it as much as 21. So I would, if you were a betting person, I would bet on Stanford to cover.
Yep. Next one is Oklahoma +1. I mean, this is easy. I'd pick Oklahoma to win this game. Like, I know Oklahoma's down every scholarship receiver that they have, but I don't think Auburn's any good, to be honest with you. At least they haven't been so far. They just got smacked at home by Arkansas. They got beat at home by Cal. I mean, this is their 5th straight home game, and at best they're going to be 3-2. to start the season, all home games. It's going to get worse for Auburn because their schedule gets real road heavy after this game, Trevor, because they got to go to Georgia, to Missouri, to Kentucky. Then they're home for Vanderbilt, Monroe, and A&M. And then they got to go to Bama. So if they don't win this game, they're not going bowling. I'm just as simple as that. They're not going bowling. And they still might not go bowling even if they win this game against Oklahoma. But even though Oklahoma's depleted, that's a really good Oklahoma defense. Really good Oklahoma defense. And this is a not very good Auburn offense. So I'm going Oklahoma to win this game. So you can do with that what you will when it comes to Auburn being favored. I think Oklahoma was favored earlier in the week, but with all the injuries, that line's changed. I don't think Auburn can score enough to beat Oklahoma. And I think Michael Hawkins is the right move to put him in at quarterback for this game. I don't know if it would be the long-term move that I would make, but when you're down receivers, at least this way you can kind of get that running quarterback threat. And keep them honest that way. So I'm as bad as Oklahoma's offensive line is. You know, they scored 15 on Tennessee, and Tennessee has a whole lot better defense than Auburn does. And I think 15 might be enough to beat Auburn the way that Oklahoma plays defense. I mean, I don't think y'all understand how impressive it was to hold Tennessee to 25 points last week.
Yeah,
from Oklahoma, like that was their offense is a problem, but man. That defense proved last week like they're really good. They're not like elite, but they're really good. That's a really good defense. Really good defense. Tennessee only had 13 first downs last week and only 345 yards of offense. That's it. So it's a real good. It did to Tennessee. What are you gonna do to Auburn?
Yeah.
Unless this Oklahoma team is just mentally quit. But if they come to play, if Oklahoma comes to play, they're gonna win this game, in my opinion.
Yeah, to answer your question, I would check the lines. If Oklahoma money line looks better than Oklahoma +1, that's probably what I would take if I were a betting man. But I agree with Brian. Auburn has not looked really that good at all this year, and Oklahoma has a really, really good defense. So I would take Oklahoma +1.
UCF -14. This one surprises me. With Colorado coming off back-to-back wins, they had a very convincing win over Colorado State, a touchdown win over Baylor last week. And I know Baylor's not that good, but 14 points. And UCF has only played, one team all year that has a pulse? I mean, their first two games were against New Hampshire and Sam Houston. They did play at TCU, and they ended up going on the road and beating TCU by a point. But they had to outscore TCU 15-3 in the fourth quarter to win that game. So a 14-point spread is a little – I was shocked by that. So I would probably predict UCF to win because I believe it is a home game for them, Trevor. I believe it's a home game for them against Colorado. But I would imagine it's going to be closer than that because, yes, Colorado's defense cannot stop UCF, but I don't think UCF's defense can stop Colorado either. So I would predict UCF to win, but a much more competitive football game. And I won't be shocked if Colorado wins this game. UCF has not impressed me so far this year in the game that I saw them play. I think TCU choked that game away.
Yeah, with Colorado, more times than not, I'm going to pick them to cover because that offense is really good. Running game, but so far what I've seen is there's not a single team that they have played yet this year that has proven that they can stop Travis Hunter, and I think that's something that you can't always count out. UCF by 14 is a lot. And I'm not high on Colorado. I will say that. They can't run the football. I don't think their defense is that great, which is why I do believe that UCF is going to win. I don't know, by 14.
Got a few more. Nebraska -10. Honestly, I even forgot who Nebraska plays. You're going to have to give me do you remember who Nebraska plays? For some reason, I completely whiffed on who Nebraska plays this week. So give me 1 second to see who that is. Nebraska plays at Purdue, and they're a 10-point favorite. Purdue they lost by 17 at Oregon State last week. Purdue's secondary is a problem. But they got run on by Oregon State last week. Yeah, that defense is having a tough time right now. So I'm going to go. If I were to pick that game, I'd probably go Nebraska. I'd probably go Nebraska 10 or more in this game. And Purdue's going to have to show me they can stop somebody. I mean, their defense is bad the last 2 weeks. I mean, They gave up 341 rushing yards to Oregon State and again, it was on the road, but in their previous home game, they lost by 59 to Notre Dame. So their run defense is a problem, and Nebraska runs it okay, but I think they're going to have a tough time covering. Like Notre Dame had chances to hit even more plays in the pass game against Purdue, and I think they'll hit some of those. Rail will hit some of those. So I'm going with a route. Purdue's got to show me they can actually be playing a competitive game before I can predict it.
Yeah, I have Nebraska winning by more than 10 as well. I'm really high on Dylan Raiola. I think he has a lot to build on. I know people call him and make fun of him for being baby Mahomes and all that stuff.
He does that, but that's on him though.
Mhm.
Like he does the hair the same. He tries to mimic dude, you're trying to be like Pat Mahomes. Like, so don't get upset if people
100%.
100%.
Yeah. I mean, it's crazy. Same number, same arm sleeve, same. I mean, they walk the same.
Headband. He's got the same haircut. He's trying to mimic Pat Mahomes, and it's like, bro, be comfortable enough in your own skin to be the only Dylan Raiola. But the only thing for me is they're going to struggle in games where they're making him carry the offense, and that's what Illinois was able to do. We talked about this yesterday. Illinois was able to shut down the run game and say, you're going to have to beat us, and he's still a freshman. He's going to make freshman mistakes. I don't think Purdue can do that, which is why I think Dylan's going to go off, because he won't have. It's like, hey, we're going to run the ball. You're going to get your shots, take your shots, and we're going to be okay. So yeah, I'm with you on that one. They got Iowa State on the road at Houston. They're a 16-point favorite. Houston is really bad. They actually it's funny is they had a competitive loss against Oklahoma, but they got blown out by UNLV and got blown out by Cincinnati. Iowa State, the question for me, Trevor, is Iowa State's offense, high octane enough to outscore them? They scored 52 against Arkansas State last week, but they only scored 20 against Iowa and 21 against North Dakota. So that's a lot of points, and you're going to have to basically shut Houston down, which they should be able to do. I'd probably pick it to be a more competitive, a closer game than 16. I'd probably go something like 20-10, 24-13. So I'd probably go something like that. But I think Iowa State wins this game kind of handily.
I do too. 16 is a lot. And I'm not high on Houston, but I mean, I guess you could call it a 2-possession game if you get 2-point conversions. But for all sakes and purposes, winning by 3 possessions is still a lot. So I do think Iowa State wins. I don't think it's by 16.
Yep. Final game is IU -7 at home against Maryland, and IU going 5-0. I buy that. I think it's going to be a good game, but Indiana's offense is really good, and Maryland's offense has been okay, but nothing special. It's on the road. I'm going with Indiana to go 5-0. I really like what Kurt Cignetti's doing there. Like, this is a game we're going to learn a lot more about Indiana than maybe we have the last couple games, because Maryland has some athletes. They had a very convincing win over Virginia at Virginia. They had a very competitive loss to Michigan State. They blew out Villanova, blew out UConn, but I think they're going to go on the road and lose. And I would predict a 7 to 10 point win for Indiana in this game. So yeah, I'm on the Indiana hype train right now for what they've shown so far against this type of team. I'm not going to be like, hey, Indiana's going to go, on the road and beat Ohio State at the end of the year. Like, nope, not going there. But for what we've seen so far, this Indiana team is a pretty good football team right now. They're coached very well. And we're not in the part of the season yet where there's enough film to necessarily have answers just yet on what they're doing. So that's my take on that, Trev.
I'm with you. Not a whole lot to add. I also hope IU goes 5-0. And I don't know if they're going to win by 7, but I do think they beat Maryland. But it's going to be more of a test for sure for the Hoosiers. But hoping they pull out with a win, because 5-0 would be awesome. Super chat from ND Milton fan. Thank you. Would this be a good time for Riley Leonard to play more snaps under center? Has MD Mike Denbrock utilized under center more or less this year compared to past seasons?
He's never been much of an under center guy. Even at Notre Dame in 2015, they'd go under center at certain short yardage situations. They did more pistol back then than maybe we've seen this year. But to me, there's no reason to put Riley Leonard under center unless you're running a quarterback sneak. And even then, I don't know that I would necessarily do that. Like, I know there's people like, you can't run 4th and 1. I'm like, okay, that's because I just don't agree. I mean, Tim Tebow never went under center that I can ever remember. when you go under center, I mean, you got some bootleg things I guess you could do, but what you do whenever you put him under center is you eliminate the quarterback run threat. You completely eliminate the read zone. They're going to defend your bet. Now you have to put someone backside to account for the backside gap. There's no need to put him under center. Would I maybe consider doing some pistol stuff? Yeah, I would actually consider, if I was Notre Dame, running some read zone stuff out of pistol and really putting like Riley in a longer mesh and really putting those defensive linemen in some binds where you kind of force them to because the mesh is happening so much further closer to the line that they can't play both as effectively. And I just kind of mix it up a little bit out of that. There's some different counter stuff that you could do out of the pistol where you could maybe read that a little bit more effectively. I'm not saying I would do it a ton. I'm just saying there's some wrinkles you can do out of pistol. That's the closest I would get Riley Leonard to being under center. There's no reason. There's no benefit for having a quarterback that's rushed for 243 yards the last 2 weeks of being under center. And he didn't do it at Duke, so it's a new technique for him. The last thing I want Riley Leonard to do is have to learn something else new. Like, just structurally, you're not doing anything that you need to change structurally. You just got to be better at it. And you know what I mean? Like, shotgun's fine. You're doing a little bit of pit. That's fine. You're doing read stuff. That's fine. Just be better at it. Execute it better. That's my focus with Riley Leonard. Not, do you need to put him under center? No, this is not a game to put him under center. This is a game against this blitzing team. This is a game where I want the threat of the quarterback being able to pull it whenever, and you have to account for that. This would be the last game that I would consider putting him under center personally. So I don't see that it brings a ton of value. And this has kind of been in line with what Coach Denbrock has done. The school where he did probably the most under center was probably Cincinnati, from what I can remember, and they didn't do it a ton then either. And I have a feeling that was more Luke Fickell mandating that than it was Mike Denbrock necessarily trying to do that. He's not a guy that really does a whole lot of that.
Especially once you factor in the potential weather forecast for this weekend as well. I don't know if you ask, well, I do know you don't ask Riley Leonard to go under center. Learn something new, to your point, Brian, so I won't harp on it, but yeah. I agree.
Unless it's windy and absolutely pouring, and it's not supposed to be pouring, under center snaps I've always found to be harder to handle in the rain than with a wet ball than shotgun snaps. Mm-hmm. I know not everybody agrees with that, but I absolutely, as a quarterback, I always found under center snaps to be tougher. Like I coached a team where I had basically begged the coach to put us in shotgun my sophomore year of college because the center sweat so bad in his butt that his hands, like his pants, would be soaked. And it's like every time he'd snap the ball under center, it's like the ball's soaking wet. And I was like, we got to go shotgun because this guy literally, we can't get a clean ball. It's like it's 75 sunny and not a drop in the sky, and we're playing with a wet ball the whole time. It's freaking ridiculous. But under center snaps with a wet ball can be a challenge. Definitely be a challenge. I'm actually asked this one, Trevor, because this is for you. So this is from Iden Benami. Thank you, Iden. Trev, where did you go to high school and college, and what are your favorite teams? Now, you don't have to give out personal information like that, Trevor, but if you're okay giving that as far as high school and college, feel free to do so. And then favorite teams, they're usually asking, like, who's your favorite basketball team, football, NFL, that kind of thing.
Yeah, so high school, I went to Elkhart Memorial High School, which I know is no longer a thing. It is combined into Elkhart High School. So I was one of the last classes. I graduated 2015. So
you killed your own high school, man. That's ridiculous.
I know. It might have been my fault. Who knows? But and then for college, I moved down here to the University of Indianapolis. So went there, and I've been down here ever since. Favorite teams, as far as college goes, I'm one of those. I'm a Notre Dame everything fan. I know there's some people who are Notre Dame football and IU basketball, and I'm a Notre Dame everything fan. For professional sports, I would say it was weird. Where I grew up, there were Bears fans because Chicago's 2.5 hours away. Indianapolis was 3 hours away. Even Detroit was a couple hours away. So I don't really have a team. I mean, I live in Indianapolis, so it would be awesome to see the Colts start to turn things around because that's a lot of fun to live in a city where the professional sports team is a lot of fun. But my wife is from Cincinnati, and her entire family are diehard Bengals fans. So by association, I'm actually going to the Bengals-Ravens game here during Notre Dame's bye week on Sunday. So that'll be a lot of fun to go and do that with her families, the new in-laws. So, yep, those are my favorite teams by far. But obviously, Notre Dame takes the cake with that one. Super chat from Brian Kelly's caddy. Do you think Marcus Freeman takes Riley Leonard out the game if he's flat in the first half? If he does, hopefully he doesn't do it too late in the game.
Riley Leonard is yet to play flat. He hasn't played well, but he's never played flat. I mean, like I said, last week was the first time. Last week was probably the best game he's played at Notre Dame. It was the first time Notre Dame didn't come out and score on their very first drive of the game. He didn't come out flat against Texas A&M. He didn't come out flat against Northern Illinois. He literally led them on like a 10-play touchdown drive and got hurt, I believe, on that drive or the very next drive. And then, of course, didn't come out flat against Purdue. So, like, we've built up some of these narratives about Riley Leonard that I just don't think are actually what's going on, which makes it hard to have a discussion about what he's actually doing wrong, because we then create these narratives that I then have to defend Riley Leonard because, like, that's not reality. Yet Riley Leonard needs to play better. Would I consider taking Riley out and Leonard out in the first half if he's out there and he can't complete passes and he's in his head and he's mentally beating himself up? And you got to consider that. You have to win this game. And if there comes a point in time, whether it's the first quarter, second quarter, third quarter, fourth quarter, you don't think he gives you the best chance to win that football game, then yeah, you got to make a move. But it has nothing to do with coming flat. I mean, you're basically putting a narrative out there that, like, you know, Riley Leonard's going to cost Notre Dame this game. And you know, who knows? Maybe that happens. But coming out flat has not been an issue for Riley Leonard in a single game that he's played this season. He's come out and not played well in some games. I mean, he didn't play well early against Miami of Ohio. There's no spinning that. There's no debating that. He couldn't hit simple 5-yard passes, right? That hurt them. It hurt them early. It didn't cost them a game. That may cost you a game against a team like Louisville if you're that bad in the first half. And so those are things that a head coach has to consider. But more so, my thing when it comes down to making a quarterback change, Trevor, it's not just, okay, he's off to a rough start. I need to look in his eyes too and be like, you know, okay, he missed those throws. He knows he did it. He's fine. He's going to go out that next series and hit them. But if I'm about to go out to that next series and I look in my quarterback's eyes and he's just got this like that was the worst thing about the Northern Illinois game, is he just had a look in his eyes like he doesn't have answers. Now, come to find out, it's because it sounds like he was in a lot of pain and they couldn't run him. But, you know, that hasn't seemed to be the issue the last two games. As long as he's got a look in his eyes like, coach, I'm good, and then go out there. Because that's what he did against Miami of Ohio, right? He had those 2 bad throws. And then after that, he was pretty good. I had him down. He was 1 of 3 in the first quarter. And I had him down. What was the number I had? Dang it. I don't have my stat sheet, but he was something like 6 of 9 in the second quarter and like 9 of 13 in the fourth quarter or third quarter, something like that. Like, he got pretty hot after those early misses as far as completing passes. So he's going to have to play well. And if he's struggling to play well, then and you think someone else gives you a better chance, then you have to consider that move. I don't think that the person that they would put in does give them better chance to win. So it's imperative that Riley Leonard play well, because I don't think they would turn to the quarterback that I think gives them a better chance to win this football game. That's the concern I have.
I don't think he would, to be honest with you. Just in pertains to the super chat, it's, do we think Marcus Freeman would take him out of the game? I personally don't, because he has been very consistent with, he's our guy. We have the utmost confidence in Riley, because you do have to take into consideration last week, Riley Leonard did start the game 1 for 3, missing those easy layups, and then turned it on a little bit. I do think if Notre Dame is going to make a coaching change, it will come, or a quarterback change, it will come during the bye week. It would have to be something pretty catastrophic for Riley to get pulled in this game, in my opinion. I'm with you that this is a must-win game for Notre Dame, but Riley gives your offense the biggest opportunity to be dynamic and provides an aspect in the running game that it would be very hard for Marcus Freeman to turn away from, in my opinion. So I hear you. I think that if a change were to come, I think it happens after this game. But barring an injury to Riley Leonard, I think they would keep him in for as long as humanly possible before they would pull that trigger.
Injury or multiple bad turnovers.
Yeah.
Like that would be my The other thing as a coach, though, is you have to be willing to look at a guy and be like, he doesn't have it today.
Totally.
And consider that. But that's not something I've seen from Riley outside of the game where he was hurt. And I think that had more to do with just pain than it did to do with anything else.
Yep.
That's when you really know a guy is done. When you just look at him, he's like, he doesn't have it. He doesn't have answers.
Sure. Super chat from Rob Osgood. Thank you, Rob. Buy, sell, hold. Non-X's and O's question. Will the team show up with attitude? Typically, ranked teams, Notre Dame comes out pumped. It's the lower tier teams. That's the problem.
Well, it wasn't the case. Like, this is the thing is like, that's generally a true statement.
Mm-hmm.
The only exception was what? Louisville last year. Right now, that was a unique situation. That was Notre Dame's 7th straight game to start the season. It was their 3rd straight primetime game, their 2nd straight road game. And that team, there was a lot of reasons why. None of them are excuses. No excuse to come out and flat in that football game. You still have the college football playoff in front of you if you win that game. And you've got top 10 USC come to town next week. Like, you still have statements to make, and they came out flat. There was no excuse for it. I'm just saying there was a little different circumstance in this. But to your point, this year especially, it's the quote unquote good teams or the Power 5 teams that Notre Dame has come out this week and played really well against this year. And then the MAC teams that they're supposed to blow out, they don't. So I would think, based on history and trends, that Notre Dame is going to come out and play well this game and play with attitude. But I don't know that I feel comfortable enough with knowing what this team is going to do to say for sure. So I would like to say, I think that they will come out with attitude and they will come out with an edge. Doesn't mean they're going to play well, but if they lose, I don't think it's going to be because they come out flat. I don't think that is. And if that's the case, there is a major problem on this football team, and there needs to be an overhaul during the bye week. Like, if your veterans can't lead you in a way where your team comes out with energy this week, then maybe it's time to say, hey, thank you for your service, but we're moving on to guys that want to play with some fire. I hope that we don't have to have that conversation after the game, but that would surprise me. I don't Notre Dame playing not playing well wouldn't shock me because Louisville's good. Notre Dame playing with no fire, that would shock me and would be a major red flag. So I'm not predicting that to be the case. I'm not saying that they're definitely going to win, but I think they'll come with an edge and they'll play with attitude. But I also think if they do that, I do think they will win. But we'll see.
This would be a game devastating to the structure of Notre Dame's football program if they didn't come out with a little bit of fire. Between everything that's happened this year and how much of a roller coaster it's been for Notre Dame and for Marcus Freeman, and just based on who your opponent is this week and what they did to you last year, if they don't come out with fire for this game, there is a huge fundamental issue that is outside of the play calling and the personnel and who's on the field. They will have to reconstruct a lot of things if they come out not fired up and with emotion and with attitude on Saturday.
Mm-hmm. Agree.
Super chat from Tyler Evans. Thank you, Tyler. Give me your biggest surprise team this year and your biggest disappointment team so far outside of Notre Dame.
Well, I mean, Notre Dame's not my biggest disappointment this season at all. No. I mean, Notre Dame was ranked 7th. They've fallen all the way to 16th. Florida State was ranked 10th, and they're 1-3. I mean, that is very, very clearly the biggest disappointing team. And honestly, Trevor, they're a lot closer to being 0-4 than they are to having, won some games. I mean, Cal had a chance to beat them. Cal had a lead in the 4th quarter against Florida State. I don't know how you can say that Florida State, even if you didn't think Florida State was going to be as good as their top 10 ranking, 1-3, borderline 0-4. I don't believe anyone that tells me that they saw that. There's only one person I know that thought 0-2 was a real thing, but then they're also going to lose at home to Memphis and almost lose to Cal. I don't know about that. So far they've been my biggest disappointment. They're not alone, and they're not alone in that league. Like I said, Virginia Tech's been a huge disappointment for me so far. Biggest surprise is while we're in the ACC. Biggest surprise for me is Pitt. As far as ACC teams, Pitt being 4-0 with wins at Cincinnati and over West Virginia. I would not have dreamed of Pitt being 4-0 to start the season. As bad as they were last year, So huge shout out to Pat Narduzzi, who I am not a fan of at all, for getting that team rolling. And Eli Holstein's playing at a very high level, and their starting running back got suspended from the team right before the season started. So they've done a great job. So Pitt would be one of those. Indiana's been a huge pleasant surprise so far for me. BYU's been a really good surprise team for me so far. Illinois is a lot. I shouldn't say Illinois is a surprise. They've only won one game that I didn't think that they were going to win. I thought they'd lose to Nebraska. I thought they'd be 3-0, they're 4-0. Indiana's the team in the Big Ten to me that positively surprises me the most. They are a lot better, a lot earlier than I thought that they would be under Kurt Cignetti. So that just off the top of my head, that's probably the teams that are the biggest surprises and disappointments for me so far. Most other teams are kind of somewhere in the range of where I thought they would be. So I'll tell you, well, here's another one, last one, Trevor. South Carolina is a lot better than I thought they would be. If their quarterback doesn't get knocked out of that game, they're 4-0 right now with wins over Kentucky and LSU, in my opinion. Shane Beamer's done a really nice job with that team so far. Now we need to see if we can keep it rolling because their schedule does not get easier moving forward.
No, they have tough sledding ahead for sure. My biggest disappointment, you already hit on it, is Florida State. Not just looking at them from an overall record standpoint. I understand that they lost Keon Coleman and Jordan Travis and a smattering of different players. But there's a lot of talk about how many great transfer portal additions that they had made in the offseason, and it has not panned out in their favor. Florida State's a huge disappointment. And my biggest surprise team is definitely IU so far this year. They still have a ways to go. And there are still games that they have to go through and play. But what Cignetti's done to that team from a cultural standpoint, who he brought with them, because the games that they're playing right now, the IU team from last year does not go into the Rose Bowl and play UCLA and win that game like how they did. They just don't, right? So IU has turned it around. They've been an awesome surprise team for me this year. It's great for Midwest football. I love it.
Yeah, I know a lot of because there's a lot of Notre Dame football fans that are also Indiana basketball fans, but they kind of passively root for that team in the other sport. So like Indiana hoops fans that are Notre Dame football fans tend to also kind of they want Indiana football to be good, and then vice versa, usually. And so I know a lot of those fans that are kind of like, I'm enjoying this, I'm enjoying watching Indiana be good. So yeah, they've been I could go through each league and pick some other teams, but so far those are the ones that really stand out to me. I did want to answer a question here before we get to the next two super chats. That's in response to a discussion that we were just having. So Joshua Finn asks, he goes, Brian, who would you turn to that you think they wouldn't? This is in reference to the quarterback conversation we were having, that is saying part of the reason I don't want Leonard to get benched is because I don't think they're going to turn to someone that is going to do any better if he is struggling. And that would be Steve Angeli. And again, if he proves me wrong, I will gladly own that and be happy about it because I'm a Notre Dame fan at heart and want Notre Dame to be successful. And if a player that I don't think is good is better than I think he is, and that means Notre Dame wins games, awesome. There are people out there that I truly believe would rather Riley Leonard struggle and Notre Dame lose so they can say that they were right than to have him prove them wrong and Notre Dame wins. That is a real thing. I don't think it's prominent, but it's at least those people tend to be very loud. And we won't hear from them for 2 months if Riley Leonard turns this thing around. We won't hear from them again until like Notre Dame loses a playoff game. And then they're like, see, I told you he sucks. You know what I mean? But to me, if he proves me wrong, great. I just feel like Notre Dame's best chance, if you make the decision at some point in time, Riley Leonard's not the guy. Don't go to the stopgap. Don't go to the bridge. Just cross the bridge and go right to what's on the other side. And that's either Kenny or Steve or Kenny or CJ or some combination of Kenny and CJ is the route that I would go. If you think Kenny and CJ are both deserve playing time, then play them both. I don't care. Because at this point in time, it's just a tryout for next season. Like if they lose this game and Riley plays poorly, and this staff says, hey, we got to go in a different direction because this isn't working. And they say, hey, look, we're not sure who's better between CJ and Kenny. We think they're going to battle, and that battle's going to start now, and we're going to have them both play. What do you play? You're not a championship team right now. Like maybe you can sneak into the playoff at 10-2, but you're not a championship team right now. So you're building for the future at that point in time. What about the veterans? Well, the veterans are part of the reason that you're in this problem to begin with. So, maybe you should have thought about that before you didn't play well the first 4 games of the season. But I would turn to one of those two, if not some form of both. And I'm not normally a 2 quarterback guy, but in this case, I think you could maybe figure out a way to make it work if you're not sure if they're both kind of, in the same spot, and then see who plays best. And then by the end of the season, hopefully one of those 2 guys is merged as the guy. And then you're ready to roll, and that those players or that player will have some experience under their belt going into next season. That's what I would do if Riley doesn't turn the corner. I still think and want Riley Leonard to turn the corner, but if he doesn't, so I just make sure I'm not advocating benching Riley Leonard. I'm advocating Riley, go out against Louisville and do your thing, man. You know what I mean? I still want that to happen. I still believe him playing to his ability and him playing like he did at Duke in 2022 gives this football team the best chance to win football games. If he proves to not be that guy, then I'd want to go to, one of the 2 freshmen, redshirt freshman, true freshman, Kenny or CJ. And if one of them, if it's just one of them, great. If it's both of them, fine. Until you find out who separates themselves. That's what I would do, to be honest with you, Trevor, is that would be the move that I would make. And I know that's going to upset some people that think Angeli's the answer at Notre Dame, and that's fine. And honestly, if he turns out to be good, I'm glad you're right. I hope you're right. I mean, that's great. I hope the people that think Angeli's the dude and has it, I hope they're right, because that's good for Notre Dame if he is, because I think that's who they'd put in the game. And so this would be one of those ones that if he's the guy and they go with Steve, I will pray that I'm wrong. Like literally root for me being wrong, because if I'm not wrong, it's going to be bad for Notre Dame. So I'd rather be wrong and it's good for Notre Dame than the other way around.
Couldn't agree more. I don't have a whole lot more to add. I'm a big Notre Dame fan. I want Notre Dame to win, whether that's whoever's under center. It could be Riley Leonard. It could be Steve. It could be CJ, Kenny. It could be Anthony Rizak. Whoever it is, if Notre Dame is winning, that's great for ND Nation. And ultimately, that's what I want to see. Right now, I come at it very similar to you, Brian. I think Riley Leonard gives Notre Dame the best chance to win football games right now, because a lot of it with Steve is speculation. Yeah. And it's easy to say, well, when this one quarterback doesn't live up to the preconceived notion
QB
that
syndrome.
I had.
It's backup QB syndrome. You ignore every negative that kid is clearly shown on film, and you grab onto he made this throw and he made that throw that, and you ignore the fact that, like, there were throws he missed against Purdue that people would literally complain about Riley Leonard missing, and ignore the fact that Steve missed them twice and say, like, well, but he hit that ball. Well, didn't Riley hit that ball last week against Great House and it got dropped? I mean, it's like, but it's different. And I'm like, no, it's not. That's how we are. When we think a guy's the guy, Trevor, especially backup quarterback, we ignore his flaws and obsess on the couple things we saw that we liked. And it happens all the time. This is not unique to Steve Angeli. He just happens to be the backup quarterback now. And so, sorry for interrupting, but like it drives me nuts, because we see this in pro sports, college football, all over. It's backup quarterback syndrome. And but I hope I'm wrong. I hope I'm wrong. And he is that player. I haven't seen it.
I'm with you. I agree.
I want to, there's been a Louisville fan that's been in our chat since the beginning of the season, and he and I have disagreed on a lot of things, but he said something in the chat just now that we are spot on the same page on. He said the service academies are the last of a dying breed. True college football development, no NIL, and transfer portal. Amen. And that's also partly why I'm so glad that they are not only both undefeated. Talking about Navy and Army, I think Air Force dropped a game, but I'm so happy that they're playing well. But I'm even more happy that they're just out there dominating people. And then Navy getting that win over Memphis last week was huge for them. Yeah, Air Force is 1-2, but the other 2 are undefeated and whooping people. Miami Army killed Temple last night. Now Temple's terrible; they're awful, but Army throttled them last night. Yeah, let me handle this one. I'm sorry. Go ahead, man.
No, you're good. It was about the service academies, man. I love them because there's no secret to what they're going to do. Every team that plays Navy, Army, they know what's coming. And I think the thing that I love is it goes to show what happens when you have a program that's truly bought into what you're doing and bought into the scheme, and you get to see it. It's awesome.
Yep. True student athletes. I'm going to take this one because this is kind of to you, Trevor. It says Trevor Rocket, our man up in Canada. First off, Trevor, great name. I just got to say that. Brian, Trevor, we are going to find out a lot tomorrow afternoon about this team. Appreciate all that you do. Cheers, IB Nation. Appreciate you, Trevor.
Yeah, appreciate you.
Much. And you are
Appreciate
still in our prayers, my man. Still in our prayers. Pete Weber, the super chat. Trevor, been loving your insight. Welcome. Who wins? Brady Quinn's best Notre Dame team or Lamar Jackson's best Louisville team? Who is the game MVP?
Okay.
Are you old enough to remember Brady Quinn's 05 teams?
I am.
Okay, good.
I am. Brady Quinn's best Notre Dame team versus Lamar Jackson's best Louisville team. That's tough. Well, Pete, first of all, appreciate you, man. The bias in me wants to go Brady Quinn 05 because that team was awesome. Maurice Stovall, if Rima McKnight stayed healthy, they would have that receiving core plus Samardzija. Anthony Fasano was awesome. Darius Walker was coming into his own. The concern I would have would be if defensively they'd be able to keep up with the speed of Lamar Jackson's best team at Louisville. That would be my major concern. I think the game would be a shootout. And you know what? We'll do this. If the game goes into a shootout, I'm going to trust Brady Quinn's arms over Lamar Jackson's legs. I would give Brady Quinn the MVP. There's slight bias, but if I were to compare, Lamar Jackson in college was not a refined passer. He was a fantastic athlete. Brady Quinn with that offense, I think it would be a very high-scoring game. Yeah, I think I would go. I would go Brady Quinn's 05 team.
Yeah. That's a tough one. I think you nailed the part about it being a shootout. It would be a very high-scoring game. The reason that I would go with, because we're talking, what was the year Lamar won the Heisman? It'd be 2016, right? The reason I'm going Brady, honestly, is because I think Notre Dame's 05 D-line could have done enough to give that Louisville team some problems. And I also think that Brady had a better supporting cast. It's still Lamar and Lamar. You know, I mean, like Notre Dame in 05 had to play some elite athletes. I mean, they had to play Reggie Bush. And at the end of the day, Reggie was too much. I mean, if you take Reggie Bush off that field, I know Leinart and Dwayne Jarrett had that big play at the end, but if you don't have Reggie Bush, it's not a close game at that point. And, so at the end of the day, I just feel like it would be a great game. I think that Notre Dame's defense would have a better shot at making at least a couple stops against Lamar because you just bottle him up a couple times and then they don't. I mean, James Quick is their top receiver. I mean, who's their top running back? Like Brandon. I mean, Lamar was, but after him, like Brandon, you got Samardzija, Stovall. Anthony Fasano. You got Victor Abiamiri, Trevor Laws, Derek Landy trying to chase Lamar down. You got NFL players trying to shut Lamar down, where you have not a lot of NFL players trying to stop Brady in that offense. Yeah. So I would say shootout game that Notre Dame wins. And MVP would have been whichever receiver has the dominant game, either Mo or Samardzija.
Yeah, I agree. I think the game would have looked a lot like that Clemson-Louisville game in 2016, 42-36. I just pulled up the stats. Lamar Jackson in that game showed why he's an amazing athlete. He carried the ball 31 times that game. 31 times for $162 and 2 touchdowns on the ground. But then through the air, he was 27-44 for 295, 1 touchdown, 1 pick.
And they still lost.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? Like they still lost to a great team also in Clemson. But I mean, you also saw some of the flaws later in the year, like against LSU, against Houston, where those teams kind of found the answer to bottling Lamar up in the run game. And then there wasn't a whole lot that they could do, if Houston can beat them, I think that 05 Notre Dame. Now, 06 Notre Dame team would have got shredded by Lamar. They would not have won that game in 06. Nope. But the 05 team, in my opinion, would have. Absolutely. Good stuff. All right, so now we've gotten through the super chats, so we can get back up to the top and get to some more questions. So we're going to get rocking and rolling here with our guy, Iden Benami.
Iden asks, Jaden Mickey, what can you say? An amazing, tough young man, handled everything with grace and maturity. Wish him the best, but this one hurts, in my opinion. Sorry if you discuss this on Tuesday.
No, it does. I mean, look, I don't want to say a lot about this because this to me, if if this was a normal circumstance, I'd probably have a lot harsher things to say about Jaden leaving. But I'm trying to put myself, and I'm going to get personal here for a second. I'm trying to put myself in his shoes. And if I'm just a student athlete that's pissed off that I got beat out for a position and I quit on my team in the middle of the season, then that's not someone I respect.
Mm-hmm.
But you can't just stop it at that with Jaden Mickey. This is a teenager who was a teenager at the time who lost his mother. What, 9 months ago? He's far away from home. Dad lost a loving wife, supportive wife. Things aren't going his way on the football field. It's a lot harder to be bought in to everything going on here when my heart is still there. And that's why I'm not lumping Jaden's situation. And you know what, end of the day, it may just be a football thing with him. I don't know that. But when I put myself in Jaden Mickey's shoes and I think about when I was 19 or 20 and I was playing college ball, if my mom tragically passed away, I know my dad would not be okay. And I would feel that way. And I would feel the need as the son, as the oldest boy, the oldest child, to say, I got to go back and closer to home and take care of my family. I don't even know that I would have still kept playing football, to be honest with you. Now, Jade's in a different situation because he's on scholarship and that kind of stuff. I wasn't. So that's why I'm a little bit more, I don't want to go into this one because I don't know the motivation behind it. It could just be a thing where like this football thing's not working out at Notre Dame and my dad's doing this and my sister needs me and I feel a sense of responsibility to my family. So I'm going to go closer to home and still play football, still get it, he's going to have his Notre Dame degree, then you know what? I still don't like it. I'd still say keep playing. I still don't think it's the right thing to do. See this thing through, be there with your teammates. You'll still have another year to play next year. And, that would still be my advice, but I'm a little less, I'm going to bang on him because if I was in his shoes, I don't know that I would even been able to make it back to Notre Dame, period, to be honest with you. Unless it was something like my mom's one wish was to get a degree from there. So that's the reason I've kind of avoided this. I don't like the decision. I will never condone, barring some extenuating circumstance, a player just kind of stopping in the middle of the season and not being with his teammates. But in Jaden's case, I'm just trying to look at it a little bit differently because I don't know how I'd struggle losing one of my parents now, Trevor, as a 46-year-old man. Couldn't imagine being a 19 or 20-year-old and having that happen. And so I'm trying to show some grace to Jaden that I'm not willing to give to Matt Sluka or Bear Alexander or the UNLV running back or some of these other kids that have made that decision, just because I know what Jaden has gone through as a young man. And I would not have handled it as well as he's handled it. I would not have been able to go play the next day. I promise you that. I would not have been strong enough inside, in my opinion, to go play a football game the next day and have any focus. And he did. And so his mom and dad raised a strong young man. So I'm just trying to stay out of that as much as I can, because even though I don't like the decision, no matter the circumstances, I'm much more understanding of them because I know what this young man has gone through. And I don't know that I would have handled even as well as he has up to this point in time, to be honest with you. So that's just kind of where I'm at. So I tried to focus on Tuesday on the football aspect of it and what it means for the football team. So again, you can agree with this decision and say it's support his decision. That's fine. I don't support the decision. I'm just not going to really rip him for it because I don't know all the circumstances. And again, his situation is different, I think, than a lot of these other kids that are making like the Matt Sluka. It's just NIL money. Jaden Mickey's not leaving their name because they're not giving him NIL money. It's not about that for him. And so that's why I'm just like, hey, look, I wish the kid all the best in the world and pray for him and pray for his family. And I hope wherever he goes, he's going to crush it. And you know what? Young man's still going to stay here in the spring and get a degree from Notre Dame. And I know for a fact that his mama would have wanted that. And so he's going to get the one thing that I know his mom cared about, and that's a Notre Dame degree. Yeah. So he's still going to get that. And after that, it's like, hey, partner, best of luck to you. I'll be rooting for you. And that's my statement on Jaden Mickey and where I'm at with Jaden Mickey.
I'm not too far from you, Brian. Hope Jaden Mickey nothing but the best. I do think looking at this situation, I think it goes a little bit beyond football because you do have that responsibility internally that you feel towards your family and you want to be there for them. So for me, I'll just leave it with hope you nothing but the best, man. Whatever decision that you have to go out and make that you feel is best fit for your family, it's all you can ask of yourself. It's awesome that he's staying to get his degree, which we all know sets you up for a lifetime. A degree from Notre Dame sets you up for life. And that's, part of the reason why Marcus Freeman has kind of turned around the recruiting state at Notre Dame and started to help that out. So happy to see that Jaden's going to do what he can to better his situation and hope him nothing but the best.
Absolutely.
Question from Irish Blooded. Do you prefer an even rotation game plan for our running back, or do you think letting a set running back get more handles to help get them routine on a given week would work better?
That's a good one. I think it varies week to week. I think there's going to be some weeks where you're going to need Jadarian Price a little bit more than maybe you need Jeremiah Love. There's going to be some weeks where you need to ride Jeremiah Love. I think you got two good backs. I think early on you give a somewhat even rotation and see who the hot back is. See what you have that's working. Hey, against this team, these calls are working. This skill set's working. Like you could come out on Saturday and Jeremiah's first 3 carries go for 5 yards and Jadarian's first 3 carries go for 40 yards. And I'm going to be like, hey, let's give Jadarian another shot to get out there and see if he's got the hot hand today. And I would say the same exact true as if it's the other way around. Now, that doesn't mean you don't play the other guy because as we saw with Jadarian, he only had really 1 carry against Purdue that did much because of how things went. But that was a pretty big one. That one play was a pretty big one.
Yeah.
And so you play them both. You play them both. The only rotation that I have a problem with is I'm okay with Aeneas Williams being your third down back. I'm even okay with Devin Ford to a degree being your third down back. You just have to be willing at times to have one of those other 2 guys on there as well. Like I know people get pissed off, like, oh, you need to have one of those 2 guys always on the field on third down. Why? The running backs have a shelf life, not just overall, but within a season. So I don't want to, have Jeremiah Love taking 50, 60 extra hits on pass pro if I don't need to. You know what I mean? Now, 2 minutes left in the game, and we've got to go down and get a score against Northern Illinois. One of those 2 cats is going to be on the field for me the whole series. 2-minute drill at the end of this half against Miami, Ohio, or 3rd and 9 against in a normal situation where we're going to drop back in the throw, and I need the back to stay in pass pro. Aeneas, you got this. Devin, you got this. I don't need Jeremiah Love to take that hit. And so it's part of saying, hey, you got a deep running back room. Take advantage of it.
Yeah.
But just know there's a time and a place where you got to make sure 4 or 24 is on the field. That's kind of where I'm at. That's kind of where I'm at. Especially again, guys, Notre Dame's opportunity to have a 16-game season is not over yet. It's not. And you still have to be playing like that's a possibility. So that's where I am on that one.
Don't just continually rotate the backs for the sake of saying in the early game plan, we talked about rotating the backs. So won't harp on it too much, but ride the hot hand, whether that's 4 or 24 or even Aeneas Williams, because he's starting to see more playing time. If there's matchups that you like and you're starting to see something is working, don't pull it just for the sake of rotating him in and out. I'm with you.
Right. Yep. I would like to have an alternate third down plan that includes one of those 2. And again, it could be Love, it could be Price. I don't care. I think you guys should know me by now to know that when I talk about one of the 2, I don't care if it's Love or Price going off. I've been very much don't get in the team Love, team Price. It's team stud running backs.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And they got more than one of them.
Yeah. I mean, they're both dynamic playmakers. Some of them are too good to take off the field. I mean, if the team is insistent on having Devin Ford or Aeneas Williams in on third down for pass pro, run 21 personnel, motion somebody out, get Jeremiah Love involved in the pass game. I'm with you. Aiden Reagan, challenging question. Regan.
I learned this last week. It's
okay.
Regan.
Okay.
We went through that last week. I was like, so we had that conversation. Hold on a second. I just lost his question. Okay. We're going to have to pull up the next one from him because I took that one off and I had unstarted it, but I'm going to find it here in a second. I know right where it is.
Gotcha. Well, Aiden Regan, I've been more checked out this year since I've started watching when I was a kid in 2012. has it been a more difficult year for you analyzing the 2024 team?
No, it hasn't. My frustration has been this, to be completely honest with you. And it ties in with his other question, which was, and we'll bring both of them up. I want to make sure that I still have that question start as well. He goes, challenging questions coming. Is this one of the bigger divides you've seen in the fan base this year regarding the lineup and state of the Notre Dame program? I think these two questions from Aiden go hand in hand. And I was actually talking with somebody about this today. I am totally understanding why some fans are frustrated with this football team.
Mm-hmm.
I cannot for the life of me fathom why there's the venom that some fans have. And what I told someone today was, I think it's a bit of a perfect storm of high expectations and the team being disappointed. I think the aspects of changes being made around Notre Dame that some people are unhappy with, and then you're going to put a bad product on the field for the 2 home games. You're going to pump in all this DJ music and kind of completely ruin like Notre Dame is not a college football game. Like it's just not. It's an NFL football game where you show up and you tailgate and you go to the game. They've really gotten rid of a lot of what makes a college game, which is like a band and cheerleaders and all that kind of stuff. And they're just pumping in this weird DJ music the whole time. I don't like it. And I know I'm not alone. I'm sure young people like it because that's what we cater to nowadays is young people all the time. And that's fine, but have a mix of both, And so I think the environment isn't good. It's super expensive to go to a game now, which we've talked about. And I also believe that NIL is a big factor. I think fans have become very jaded towards their favorite teams in regard to sort of having we're all in it, for this because of the fact that players are making so much money. And I think certain players are being punished because of actions of others. I think they see the shadiness that goes on with certain players and what they do. And then that Riley Leonard made certain amount of money, and then the number constantly gets inflated, of what he actually is making. And it's like, well, he's a professional now, so I can be mad at him. And I think you're seeing college players starting to get treated like NFL players, which is very much if you're not playing well, I got no use for you kind of thing. There's not that same sort of rah-rah college mentality because of, I think it's all part of it. I think it all goes into this conversation. And I just think in general, social media has become very toxic and negative. And that's where a lot of people interact when it comes to their favorite teams, is in social media, which is like, you look at some of the responses to stories I post, and it's like, I have come to learn, I used to think we could have like good football conversations on Twitter. And other than posting my stories, I rarely respond to Twitter anymore because you just get people to throw these like flaming type of posts out. Trevor, you and I are having to talk about this the other day. People, it's like, my goal in life is I just need the dopamine hit that comes with likes and follows. And I know that acting like a complete moron on social media is going to get me follows and get me likes. So I'm going to act that way. And it's created a lot of toxicity. And there's people that then start following those accounts. And there's just this negativity of, if I yell loud enough and I sound crazy enough, I can feed that beast that we've created now. It's like, I see this in politics as well. I can't tell you the last time I heard 2 commentators that cover politics actually having a legitimate policy conversation. It's all, no, your person's the Antichrist. No, your person's Hitler. No, your person's a Nazi. It's like, are we not at all going to talk about tax policy right now? Are we just going to say, I hate you? No, I hate you. It's very toxic. And I think that's bleeding into sports fandom as well. And now that players are getting paid, I think that just adds another layer onto this. So I think it's a lot of that stuff. It's kind of all hit it at once. And that's created this weird phenomenon where Notre Dame is not the team we thought they were going to be, but they're still a 3-1 top 20 football team. And we're acting like this is the 2007 season or the 2016 season, where they lost at home to a 3-9 Michigan State team. And they lost at home to a 4-8 Duke team. That is not this team. But the way they're treated is like that. And I think all those factors pile on to create that level of toxicity that we're seeing for a team where we're acting like they're Florida State. Like, this is how I would expect Florida State's fan base to be. Deservedly so. And, it's That's been the hardest part about this year. That's been the thing I've battled with. I haven't had as much time to dive into what's wrong with Notre Dame because I've got to send out 100 letters every day, it seems, to people either canceling their memberships, complaining about the negativity, complaining that I'm not letting them be negative enough. Oh, you're censoring free speech. Please take a civics class because you have no idea what free speech means. This is a private business. Yes, I can determine what is or is not said on my message board. It has nothing to do with free speech. It's not political speech, right? But it's like, no, I'm not going to let you make your 15th post of the week saying Riley Leonard sucks. We get it. And then I got to, so that's been my biggest problem, not trying to figure out what's going on in Notre Dame. It's been frustrating watching this football team. They've disappointed so far this season. But it's been turned up to a volume that I don't think reflects the actual play of the team. Yes, it's disappointing, but we're making it seem like this is 2016 all over again. And that's where I think a lot of these different factors, and I could be completely off base here, and I'd like to hear your opinion on this, Trevor, but I think all these things, NIL, the changes, the expenses, all this stuff piles up to where I've got Notre Dame fans for the first time I've ever seen, I'm just tuning out now. And I'm like, this can't be the break year for you since 1988 that caused you to turn. There's got to be more to it than that. And I think it's all those other things where, you know what? I used to love this game. I used to love this sport, and there was some purity to it. Even when my team wasn't good enough, there was some purity to it. But now all these kids are making money. I don't follow recruiting anymore because now I don't, commitments mean absolutely nothing anymore. And the commitments are about who's paying them the most and who's doing this. It's become a really slimy business. And I think that's turned a lot of people off to where their patience for things they would have had patience for 10 years ago is gone. And I actually understand that, to be honest with you, Trevor. I do. I actually get that. So I'm not even necessarily upset with, like, there's a level of the people that are just throwing bombs to throw bombs and be negative. I have no patience for that. I don't think that's how most fans are. I think most fans are in this boat of, I just don't love it anymore because it's like, there's a reason I don't watch NFL because I don't want to deal with that stuff. This is what I love about college football. And now you've ruined that. And so I think it's just all these things being kind of put together makes it to where, like, people that love recruiting are now just like, I used to love recruiting, Trevor. Now I'm like, I don't give a crap. Just talk to me about signing. And now they're trying to get away with letters of intent. So now it's not even talk to me when signing day comes, because now it's like they can just sign and leave whenever they want. And so I think it's all together. There's not one reason. It's all together that has created where our watching experience has just been dulled. And it's like, and combine that with the toxicity that is social media, where it's like, if you're not being negative, not throwing bombs, you're not getting noticed. And I think all those things kind of play together to me. So that's where I'm at, Trevor, on why I think, because you and I have talked about it. Me and Sean Davis have talked. I had a donor at Notre Dame reach out to me today and ask me about it. I was like, brother, this was how it was before the A&M game. This isn't post Northern Illinois. That just made it worse. We were complaining about how negative things were before they even played a game. And so I just think all those things factor into, why this team is reaping the sort of negativity that they are. I think this is going on in a lot of places because I just think that's the environment that we're in right now, unfortunately.
I don't think there's one thing that you can sit back and point your finger at as to why this is the reason that the state of fandom is so bad across the board. I do agree with you that I think it is the smaller group, call it the minority group of fans who are just very toxic and spreading hatred. I think they're the loudest, which is unfortunate, right. which that could be the same for all. And I know you touched on it a little bit.
Yep. And that's been true for a long time. It's the loud, the vocal minority that tends to dominate the conversation. And then other people are just like, dude, I don't even want to be part of that because of how crazy that stuff is. You are correct.
What's checked me out of a lot of things is not the state of the football team, because in no way is this 2007. This isn't 2016. This isn't 2008. This is, I've seen a lot of Notre Dame seasons where it has been significantly more of a grind. What has been so tough for me, and this isn't even just Notre Dame specific, we as almost just a culture have gotten to the point where if you're not willing to adopt somebody else's opinion, then you are automatically wrong. And that is something that I can't stand. Brian, you and I talk all the live long day about I can have debates with anybody. I think there's a lot of people that can't accept the fact that it's okay to disagree with
Yeah.
somebody, which is extremely frustrating
Yeah.
because I think disagreements is what makes stuff healthy. We're not all supposed to be like-minded. We're not
Yeah.
all supposed to think alike, or else things would get really bland. But then you can't take the other side and be as far an extreme as saying, well, if you don't agree with me and see eye to eye with me, we just can't even have a relationship. We can't
Right.
talk. And that's when it gets bad. So speaking about Notre Dame specifically, Aiden, to your point, that's why the fan base has felt so divided. And I'm just using this as an example because there's been more than just this one player, but it's been the hottest topic of conversation. There are people out there that say, if you don't think Steve Angeli shouldn't be QB1, then you're just not a fan.
You're a hater.
Yeah.
Why do you hate the kid? It's like, what? I just don't think he's a very good quarterback. I think he's a great kid. I just don't think he's a very good quarterback.
Mm-hmm.
No, you're so spot on. Like there was I saw a tweet this morning where a guy disagreed with another political commentator. And the comments to him were like, where's your loyalty? Where's your, this guy supported you once. And it's like, hold on a second. Just because this guy supported me in the past doesn't mean I now have to bow to everything or agree with everything he says. And that's what it's turned into. If you don't, like, we're in a presidential election right now. If you don't agree with everything that Donald Trump says and does, you're a horrible person and I must destroy you online. If you don't agree with everything Kamala Harris does, you're a horrible person and I have to just destroy you online. Like, that's where we're at. We're not even like, hey, here's why I have a friend of mine who like literally had to say, Jason, just stop talking to me about this because you yell at me every time I tell you that I don't agree with you on this particular political issue or this support of this person. And it's like, and it's crept into football. If you don't agree that Steve Angeli's the answer, then I hate you and I can't watch your show anymore. It's like, really? Like, has literally somebody canceled their membership because I don't agree with him on Steve Angeli? Like, okay, cancel your membership then. But it's like, you'd rather me lie to you? And the answer I found is, yeah, people would rather you lie to them and tell you that they agree with them to actually try to engage in a real conversation of, here's why I think this is the way that it is. Fortunately for Irish Breakdown, the vast majority of the people on our message board aren't that way. And when it starts to go down that road, we can rein it back in. Because I do think most people want to engage in that. But there's just way too much of our culture, Trevor, that just wants to yell at each other and hate each other. And it's like, we are all, this is what I say. You want to know why I keep politics out of this? Because Notre Dame's supposed to be the one thing that unifies us all, whether you're Republican, Democrat, Independent, wherever you are. It's like there's one thing we all have in common. I mean, think about our staff. We got white dudes, we got Asian dude, we got black dude, like we got people from the South, we got people from the West. But you know what? The one thing that we all love Notre Dame football. And so all that other crap doesn't matter because we love Notre Dame football. But now it's like that stuff's coming in Notre Dame football because if you don't agree with this aspect of Notre Dame football, then I hate you. I don't like you. You supported Brian Kelly. I hate you. You didn't support Brian Kelly. I hate you. I dealt with that. I mean, I got some awful things said to me on social media and in my DMs because I didn't like Brian Kelly. You know what I mean? It's just like some of the stuff's like, oh my God, what is wrong with you? You need therapy. Like you need Jesus, then you need a counselor. Like you need a lot. Why? Because you don't agree with my football opinion. And that used to be a very small group. That sadly is growing. So that's part of it too, Trevor. But I really do think a lot of this stuff when it comes to the normal fan, the casual fan, I do think the game that they thought was pure never was that pure. But now it's become super slimy and it just takes a lot of the fun out of it. Like I'm watching this, like Riley Leonard in the eyes of a lot of people is no longer just a college quarterback. He is a professional quarterback because he makes $2 million. So my expectations are that he should be able to step into this offense and run it like a pro day one. Why do you think that? Because he's making $2 million. I can't disagree with that, Trevor. Like, hey, college athletes, you guys want to be paid like you're professionals, then guess what? You're going to get treated like you're professionals. Is that fair? Probably not. But that's the reality of it. You can't say, well, I want to make the money. I want to make $1 million, but I want people to treat me like I'm 18 years old. That may be what should happen, but it's not going to happen. And when you're making $1 million and you're out there not playing well, guess what? They're going to treat you just like their favorite professional athlete. There are college starters right now making more money than some guys starting their position in the National Football League. So guess what? They're going to hold you to that standard. So there's just so many different things that you can look back on and say it's all coming to, like, this is what's been so crazy about the last 2 years, Trevor. It has changed so fast. Like, people didn't get a lot. Okay, give us 5 years to get used to the portal. Then give us 5 years to get used to NIL. Then give us but it's like all bam, we're going to throw all of this at you now. Portal, NIL, all this kind of stuff right now. Conference realignment. We don't care about history and tradition. All this stuff hit us within 2 years. And that's why I said, like, there are some veteran players that, I think about, well, this guy's doing this and this guy's doing that. And I'm like, well, Rocco Spindler's attitude towards not winning a starting job is going to be different than a freshman offensive lineman's idea, because Rocco made that decision based on coaching and school and academics and all that. So he's not looking at it like, well, you agreed to pay me this and I'm not doing this, so I'm leaving. So you're going to see a different mentality, and it's only going to get worse as those players are gone. And this game is made up of nothing but players that have grown up in the system where it's all about me. So if you think it's bad now, it's only going to get worse. And the player-fan relationship is only going to get worse. And that's sad to me. And both sides are at fault for that. Everybody wants to blame the fans, and the fans especially certain types of fans, they have their own flaws and faults. But college players, you wanted this. You wanted to be treated like a professional. And now you are. And you got to take all that comes with being a professional. Like, I complain about how people have come and talked to me, and like, I don't like it, but it's like, it comes with the territory. You want to be a public figure that has a public show every day, and you're going to voice strong opinions. People are going to come back at you. Some people in a nice way, some people in a very hateful way. It's part of business. I don't have to like it, but I accept it. I understand it. It's not going to make me cry and quit doing what I'm doing. And so same thing is true for players. So this is just it's sad. And unfortunately, Trevor, I just think it's just starting. I don't think it's going to get better. And I think the only thing that can fix it, honestly, is, to steal a phrase from one of my favorite all-time movies, Major League. Guess there's only one thing left to do: win the whole damn thing. That's it. I mean, that's the only thing that I think can somewhat cure this for now. And then we're back to it again next year when they don't win it again. But, that's where it's at. And I think a lot of this, I have a whole lot of other conspiracy theories about how we're trying to divide. We have greater forces than just us trying to divide us and create this toxicity. That's a different conversation for a different show. But I think it's really bled into this, and we're always at each other for something, for stupid things. Okay, you disagree with my opinion on Steve Angeli. All right, cool. It's like, I don't know why you're mad about it. Like, maybe you need to rethink your priorities. I'm worried about paying rent next month. I'm not worried about whether or not you agree with my Steve Angeli opinion.
Man,
I'm just trying to make sure I can pay my mortgage next month. You know what I mean? So
everybody just wants to be right, man. Everybody just wants to be right.
If they would just accept the fact that I am, we'd be in the much. I need to end that on a lighter note, man. I need to end that on a lighter note. So
that's good.
Now let's move on to the next one. So Aiden, I do feel your pain, man, but I do feel your pain. But I would just say, don't let all that outside stuff ruin your love for what I still believe. Once the ball's kicked off, I still believe that's kind of pure, right? Like, that's the part where I can put all the other stuff aside. And that's partly why I get so annoyed by the stadium thing, is because, like, you guys are kind of ruining this for me. I'm trying to watch a college football game. I love putting on games from the 80s and 90s. And the whole game, the drummers are playing, the band's playing, like, the whole freaking game. That's college football to me. Now it's like, I don't need to hear this DJ. I don't need to hear, this AC/DC before every third down. I don't need to hear, this everything. Like, we know it's big. Let me hear the band. Play something. It's just. But I still believe once that ball's kicked off, man, this is still a pretty pure game.
100%.
Pretty great game. And as long as that can stay somewhat there, I'll always love it. It just, some of the other stuff I just kind of drown out, and I was like, I don't care. I don't care about that. I don't care about things I used to care about. I just don't care as much about now, just because it's just like recruiting, man. I just lost Loved recruiting. Now I'm just like, whatever. So I sit there and talk about how great this commitment is for Notre Dame. And I tell people, well, this kid tells us he's committed. And come to find out he's been lying the whole time. He's really doing this and really doing that. And it's just like, whatever.
Yeah. Aiden, I will say my one piece of advice to you is just go back to the reason why you started loving them in the first place. I always do that whenever I get the first Notre Dame game I ever went to was Notre Dame versus UCLA in 2006. And I went to that game with my dad, and we sat in the end zone where Jeff Samardzija ran in and scored. Mm-hmm. And whenever I have moments like that, of just because we've all been there, we're all Notre Dame fans at the end of the day. And you know what, man? Sometimes it's weird because you'll sit there and you think, and sometimes you think to yourself, why do I do this to myself? Why do I just devote so much time and energy? And then you go back and think of those times. And that's what helps me out a lot, is just getting back to the root cause of why you love it. For me, it was a moment. My dad and I have completely different hobbies. Obviously love him to death. He's my dad, but we have completely different hobbies, but that was the one thing that him and I got to share together. And I think about that every single time I watch him play. So whatever that reason is for you, man, just go back and think about what that is. And it helps tune out some of the background noise.
Yep. And don't be on social media during the game. Just seriously. You want to enjoy a football game? Get rid of Twitter during a game. Just sit and watch, enjoy the game. Seriously, just enjoy the game. That would be my encouragement. Like, I've even thought about like just shutting the board down on game day. Say, hey guys, get off the board, get off Twitter, just sit and watch the game. You don't need other people fueling your anger. You can do that enough by yourself. I would never do that because people pay money to be on the board during game day. So I try to moderate it, but just like, I think that's great. Just get back. Remember why you love the game in the first place and just focus on that. Yeah, as best you can. And, and if Notre Dame goes out and wins, just enjoy that for a little bit. And then we can talk about what they need to do better at, but like I say, if you're someone who was in the chat after the Purdue game, pissed off, I'd say you've lost your way.
Yeah.
Right. And that doesn't mean you have to enjoy everything that happened. It doesn't mean that you have to completely ignore what happened last week, but for 5 minutes, just, what, that was fun to watch. Tomorrow we can discuss. It's partly why I don't come on the post-game show anymore. It's like, I want you guys to talk, but it's like, look, I'll have plenty to talk about tomorrow. Let me just sit back and think about what I just saw, break down the game and all that. But it's like when you find yourself watching a game like that and you can't enjoy it, you need to do some rethinking and say, hey, listen, yeah, I can be upset about last week, but for at least this 3 hours, I enjoyed that. That was fun to watch.
D-Troll Hunter. Do you think the staff needs to stop emphasizing the need for Riley to get better in the passing game? He seems to get better after he gets the offense humming with his legs.
No, I don't. The way you said it, I don't agree with that, Trevor. I do think they need to emphasize Riley getting better in the pass game. I think they just need to tailor what pass game he needs to get better in with to fit what maybe the skill set of this team a little bit better. But look, you're not going to win championships going 10 of 18 for 112 yards consistent. Like Michigan was able to beat USC last week throwing for 32 yards. If they try that the rest of the year, they'll lose at least 2 or 3 more games. You can't do that every week. You can get away with that sometimes. Notre Dame proved that. And that was a far more dominant rushing team than what Michigan had against USC. But eventually if that part of your game doesn't dominate every week, then you get beat. Run game was dominant in 17, but the couple games they weren't dominant. Guess what? They got beat because they couldn't do those other things. So I do think Riley needs to be better throwing the football. I have seen him be a lot better throwing the football. What I would say is maybe not have it so much as maybe some of the things you were asking him to do, you shouldn't ask him to do. And maybe you tailor that passing emphasis on other things. But it would still be about, okay, we need to get him going throwing the football. Mm-hmm. We just need to maybe adjust what that would be to get him comfortable. But yes, he does need – I do think he gets better once he gets home with his legs. I flat out believe that. You and I talked about that earlier this week, Trevor. No question. But that needs to be complemented by a good passing game as well, in my opinion.
At some point, Notre Dame will have to pass the ball to win a football game, whether it's this Saturday, whether it's against USC, whether it's against Georgia Tech, or whether that's in the playoff. The team that I will always relate it back to is Michigan. Michigan last year showed that they can go back and win a national championship not having to pass the ball for 300 yards a game. But if you guys remember in the Rose Bowl against Alabama, J.J. McCarthy went 20-27 for over 200 yards passing and 3 passing touchdowns. So at some point, Riley Leonard is going to have to learn to become a more refined passer. And yes, Brian, to your point, he gets in a rhythm doing it with his legs. But my advice would be not to just sell out completely and make Notre Dame a triple option team, a pseudo 2017 type of team. Definitely needs to be refined in the passing game.
Michigan needs to do that.
Yeah,
because they don't have another option. Notre Dame does not need to do that.
Totally.
That's a great point. Great point. It's a fun one. I'm gonna ask this one of you, Trevor, because I've actually answered this question in the past. I'll give my answer as well, but I want to get yours. Favorite and least favorite green uniforms.
Are we, and I'll leave this up to you guys. Notre Dame's Shamrock Series uniform in 2013 was like, it wasn't completely green, but it was that whiteout with like green accents on it. Probably not counting that as a green jersey, but I have a bias towards those. I really like the Kelly green ones from last year.
About the ones against Arizona State?
Yes.
Yeah, those
love those.
Sure.
My least favorite ones, I can answer that right away. When they brought back like the 1977 green jerseys in the 2007 USC game, that was an interesting one.
That was my first ever Notre Dame game, Trevor.
Oh, really?
Yes.
Oh,
first ever Notre Dame game was not only did they get murdered that day, but I had to look at that uniform. I'm like, seriously?
Yeah,
this is my first ever game at Notre Dame Stadium. Is that train wreck? Yeah, that was brutal.
Yeah, I think my favorite ones is a tie between. I do really like the Kelly green jerseys that they rolled out last year. I would love to see them pair those with white pants because that's what I do on NCAA 25, and that's what all the recruits do in the pictures, and it looks fantastic.
Yeah.
But outside of that, the 2005 green jerseys where they rolled out in the USC game, I really like those. Really like those jerseys. That's probably my two.
You know, my favorite green jersey might have been a road game.
Okay.
2011 Michigan. I freaking love those alternate uniforms when they had like the green stripes and then they had the shamrock on the helmet. I don't know. I hated the outcome, but and could you imagine those with the new helmet? How that would pop? Oh man, that was beautiful. If the 2015 BC game, if they would have made the jersey numbers white, that like the green on green looked cool in person, but it did not look cool like on TV and at the stadium because I was actually at that game. And so if they would have made those numbers white, I would have probably liked that uniform a lot better.
I agree.
A whole lot better. The Florida State ones in 18, I hated. I just feel like it was just so, it reminded me a lot of 1977 throwbacks from 07. I did not like those a whole lot. I didn't love the Cal green. The green with the blue numbers. I didn't love that. I just, if you're going to wear green, you either have gold or white numbers. I actually prefer white numbers, to be completely honest with you on that. I actually did like the uniforms against Ohio State last year.
Yeah, me too.
And I think if they'd have won that game, we might have a different opinion. Because, I mean, look, we're all like that, right? I'm like that. I remember a shirt that I wore when I was a kid watching the Broncos play the Redskins. And I was like, had my Broncos shirt on. And my dad reminds me of that from time to time. I'm not one of those gracious losers, and I definitely wasn't when I was a child. And that shirt came off around halftime because you remember because when Denver went up 10-0, I was talking a lot of trash. I mean, as best trash as I could talk as a 10-year-old. You know what I mean? And my dad just sat there and was like, "All right, son, there's a whole lot of football left to play." And then, of course, the Redskins went out and scored 35 unanswered in the second quarter. That shirt came off. I don't know that I ever wore that shirt again. Like, so, I mean, I would attribute like, I'm not going to wear that because I remember that. And I'm not, you know what I mean? And so yeah, I get that. I get that. But I actually thought they were pretty sweet, to be honest with you. I am looking forward to seeing the gold, green with the white pants. I'm very much looking forward to seeing that at some point. I mean, I do the same thing. That's my go-to uniform.
Oh, yeah.
On NCAA. No question.
Oh, yeah.
I would rather see that in a night game. I think that'd be even sharper at a night game.
Yeah.
Than a day game, but I'll take it either way. Either way. So yeah,
totally.
we're the same page. Those 13 Shamrocks, I don't know if there's enough green for me to count those ones, but I do like the idea of green. Like as a kid, I remember when I was watching the Sugar Bowl against Florida and they came out with those green jerseys, I was hyped up, man. I was fired up when they came out with those. Like that still counts as green. You know what else I thought they did with green that I thought was awesome was the Cotton Bowl in 18. When they came out, they still had the blue jerseys, the normal jerseys, but they had the gold glove, the green gloves, and the green shoes.
Yeah.
I thought that was freaking sweet. I would actually like to see them do that with their home uniform. Is either go gold gloves and gold cleats or green gloves and green cleats with their normal blue and gold. I think that'd be sweet looking.
Yeah, that would be
really
sweet.
sweet looking. Yeah. Don't think they're going to do it, but I think it'd be really cool.
They danced around with it in 2014. I think it was right after Notre Dame signed with Under Armour, because I remember they had those Under Armour high top Cam Newton cleats, and they were like a gradient design, and it went from like blue down to gold. And then after, when they played Purdue in Indianapolis for the Shamrock Series, that's when they had like all gold cleats, and that's when they rolled those out. That was sweet.
Yeah. I would have liked that uniform a lot better if the helmet didn't suck.
Yeah.
And that's the same thing with like and I know that this is a very unpopular position, but I thought the Yankee Stadium's uniforms were sweet with the exception of the helmet. If they would have rocked a gold helmet for that game, I'd have been like, that's my favorite Shamrock Series game.
Yeah.
Like with the navy blue, with the Yankee kind of, play off the stripe pant. If you'd have kept the gold helmets, that would have been the perfect the perfect situational game, uniform. That'd have been sweet. But they ruined it by not having a gold helmet.
Yep.
And remember the kickball looking helmet in 13?
Yeah.
You remember that against Maryland? It had like the little dots on it, like the little splats like you have on a kickball. I was like, what are we doing here? Yeah. They've ruined some potentially decent Shamrock Series games with helmets.
Mm-hmm.
They really have.
I agree.
Like the Miami game of 2012 with the half gold and the half whatever that travesty was, like, oh my gosh, what are we doing here? I can't even go back and watch that game, even though they killed Miami in that game, because I'm like, I just don't want to look at that train wreck of a helmet.
Well, and it was weird because the helmet wasn't even split. It was like the divide was like right here.
Yes, it was so bad.
Like the leprechaun logo was backwards. That one was wild.
So bad.
That one was wild.
So they've had some really good ones, but they've also had some really bad ones.
Mm-hmm.
They've had some really bad ones. Oh boy. All right, let's get rolling. We got a two-parter here from Muhammad Abdi.
Part 1, Brian, do you think Freeman, being a motivational coach, makes his teams hyped for big games and vulnerable to be flat in some occasions, unlike Brian Kelly, business-like approach?
No, I don't think that's it, because if they bought the hype, then they would kind of always buy the hype. I think it really comes down to they don't prepare the same way Monday to Friday. And I don't think the head coach and maybe this is what Muhammad's asking. I don't know that the coach brings the same energy week to week. Now, maybe he does, and we don't know it, but they don't ever let us at practice, and they're very secretive about what they do and whatever. But so we're only left to speculate. But I just think it's a preparation thing. I really do. I just think it's a leadership thing. It's a preparation thing. It's an inability to get this team to understand that you say the right things, but you don't necessarily prepare in a way that brings those right things out. Like, look, we're just trying to be the best version of ourselves on Saturday. And my challenge with Notre Dame is like, find some stuff to get them to focus on. You know what I mean? Like, try to find some, like, and I pointed this out the other day, Trevor, like I've talked about, like, Larry Bird would do this. I've heard that Michael Jordan would do this. They'd go into a building and say, hey, what's the scoring record in this building? It's like they weren't worried about playing the Cavs. The Cavs at the time were terrible, but they're like, okay, what's the scoring record in this building? All right, cool. Let me go break that tonight. Like Larry Bird's crazy 60-point game against the Hawks. Do you know why he was focused on that? Because Kevin McHale had set the record a week before, and he was like, I'm going to break it. He told Case, like, I stay in. I kept shooting. A week later, Larry Bird goes out there and breaks it. I promise you, if Kevin McHale didn't set the record the week before, Larry Bird doesn't go out and score 60 against the Hawks. Wouldn't have had the motivation to do so. And so I think that's the thing, is like, find something additional to say in these weeks where maybe we are going to have a harder time getting this team motivated. Find something to get them motivated. Sit down with your captain. Say, hey, listen, I need you guys to be all over the team this week. I need you guys to make sure that you're monitoring your position groups in your rooms to make sure we are locked in and focused. And like I said, there's times as a coach, you got to, maybe they're not playing and practicing as bad as you think, but you got to lay into them to wake them up, to be like, hey, this is not okay. And you got to do that on like Tuesday. Set that tone for the week. There's all types of different things you can do, and it's different for every team. But I think it comes down to that. We hear about things, well, they didn't practice this week the way they did last week. Why? Like, why? It's September. Why? You got a bye coming up at the end of the month. Why? And I think it's those things, and I think those are aspects of a young football coach that's still learning his way, making some of those mistakes. So that would be my my take on that, Trevor. And here's part 2 of that as well.
Yep. Part 2, that treated every game similarly, thus making the team not elevate its level when facing better teams, but makes the team maintain a high floor.
So I apologize for not bringing that second part up because it was a continuation, but I just think it's a preparation thing,
Sure.
right? I think it's if you're gonna motivate your team for those big games, and you need to find ways to motivate your team for the not big games, and give them something else to play for. Hey, this team, you're playing somebody not very good. Find something to, that guys. There's a reason that we did bulletin board material back in the day because it works.
Yeah.
Right? Like it works. I've shared the story from my coaching career, Trevor, where we're playing a school in Virginia, and they were a relatively new football program as well. And the school I was at had dominated them in the past, and they weren't a great team, but they were decent that year. And we had trouble that week kind of getting our guys motivated because they just knew they watched film. They're not stupid. They knew this team was good, but not that good. And we're coming out pregame and we're having an okay pregame. That's not, and their middle linebacker, some middle field, and just yapping the whole freaking pregame. And that eventually our kids got pissed. So we go in the locker room and our kids are pissed. And I'm thinking, thank you, football gods, for making this moron middle linebacker run his mouth the whole pregame. Because if he just would have shut up, our kids would have come out flat. But he was running his mouth, and it pissed our kids off, and we came out and beat the ever-living crap out of that football team that week. The energy we had on game day was not what we had Monday to Friday because of that external force that was running his mouth. That's why that stuff works. When I was at Duquesne one year, we would exchange film, and at the end of film, the players recorded themselves quickly, like flash screen, pointing the middle finger on the film. Like, this team sucked. We knew we were going to destroy this team. You know what? Now our players had motivate because we saw that and played that for our players. Hey, this is what they think of you. Look what they did. They recorded themselves giving the middle finger at the end of this film, thinking maybe we wouldn't see it. We saw it, and we beat them by like almost 40 that Saturday. Find those things. Find what motivates your football team. If it's not the quality of the opponent, they're not going to be motivated by Northern Illinois. I don't care how much you tell them that this is a good football team. They're not going to be motivated by Northern Illinois. Find something else. And that's what I don't know that this team does a great job of. And you may say, well, these are professionals. And no, they're not. They're still kids. Yes, they are making money. They're this, but they're still 18, 19, and 20-year-olds who need to be motivated differently than a 29-year-old who's trying to, hey, why am I motivated to go out every day in the NFL at 29? Because I have a family to support. That's my motivation. Now it's like, what's their motivation? Hey, here's why you shouldn't party Thursday night before the freaking Northern Illinois game, because we got this to focus on. Something. And I don't know that they've been able to push those buttons yet as a staff, and they're going to have to figure out how to do that because this is not going to be the only year they have teams on their schedule that are not going to motivate them, but are also dangerous enough to beat them if they don't figure it out. That's my take on that. What are your thoughts, Trevor?
I think that is why all of those reasons combined is why I'm not afraid that Notre Dame is not going to be up for the occasion for this game specifically. Because Marcus Freeman is a motivational coach. And it's really easy to bring up motivation when you're traveling to Texas A&M or when you have Louisville coming into town, or in previous years when you had USC coming into town and they were unranked, and when you had Ohio State coming into town. But then you go back and look at games like the Clemson game when it doesn't have as much hype around it. And when it was supposed to be a night game in Death Valley, and then you end up kicking off at noon and Clemson's unranked. It's, Marcus Freeman's really good at pulling at the strings when there is just organic motivation to the game. But Brian, I agree with you 100%. They're going to have to get good at generating and manufacturing their own form of motivation for when they do play Virginia and when they do play Army and Navy and Northern Illinois. And I'm with you for sure.
Yeah, this shouldn't be one of those games. This one shouldn't be one of those games.
And if it is,
there's much bigger problems.
I am buckling up for another 5-hour post-game show if that is one of those games. You better believe me.
Yep.
Riker Ferg, coach, when you were coaching D3 football, what was the roster size? I was looking at Wisconsin Whitewater. and I counted 112 players.
It varied from place to place. We were actually at a school, I think Muhlenberg capped our roster. I don't remember if it was like 100 or 120. They capped our roster. When I was at Wittenberg, they didn't cap our roster because the football team drove mail enrollment for the school. And so first day of fall camp when I was at Wittenberg, I think we had like 10 or 11 quarterbacks on the roster. It was nuts. Mount Union's rosters used to be so big that they would have 2 teams. They would have like sort of a JV team, and like they'd have 2 practices in fall camp. And so it varies. There's no set limit for teams and things like that. A lot of times it'll be the league will set roster minimums or the school will set roster minimums. There's no NCAA rule for set minimum of number of teams for Division III. So it'll vary. I would imagine the Wisconsin schools probably have some cap that each school can be at, would be my guess, but I don't know that for a fact. So it just varies. I've been coached on teams. We had close to 200 players, and I had teams that we capped at like, I think Muhlenberg might have been 100. I think it actually might have been capped at 100. Because again, it's a smaller school, 3,000 enrollment or something like that. Like, you only have so many slots that you can have, but other schools are like, no, bring in as many kids as like Defiance. They wanted us to, we brought in 70, my first recruiting class, Defiance, we brought in 75 kids because we had to restock the roster. And the school's like, look, bring in as many kids as you can. That's where we're getting, that's a male enrollment driver for a school that was struggling to get enrollment numbers up. So it varies from school to school. And those are not things that Division I teams have to worry about that we had to worry about. So there's some kids we recruited that were okay, but we probably wouldn't have recruited if we were on a normal roster structure, but you brought them in because you're trying to, get your roster up to where it needs to be. Good kids. And it's not that, they couldn't maybe play for us at some point in time, but they weren't like, oh, we're super fired up about this kid. But it's like, look, we need depth here. We need numbers here. And our school wants us to, the more we bring in, the more kids we bring in, the more money we can get from the school because they say, hey, you have X number of kids, we'll give you X number of money for your program. If you go above that, then we'll, if you sign over this many kids, we'll give you guys a little bit more money. So it's like, okay, cool, let's do it. And, that was one of my responsibilities as the recruiting coordinator, was making sure that our numbers were where they needed to be. Where when I was at Christopher Newport, we didn't have that problem. We had more of a capped roster then as well. So it was just like, go get the best players you can get. And we did. So. Yeah.
BK's last brain cell. What would be your ideal 5 on the offensive line right now, considering what the Irish have available?
Honestly, it's pretty much what it is now, with the exception of I would make a change at left tackle. What that change would be, I don't know yet. I don't know if Gerby Lambert's ready for that. I don't know if it's Tosh Baker. I don't know if it's Sullivan Absher. Left tackle, if Anthony Knapp doesn't have a breakout game against Louisville, I don't know how you can continue with that at left tackle. Really good run blocker, but your left tackle has to be able to pass block. Has to. And so far, he's really struggled in pass pro. And you can't continue that. So, with the injuries you have, I don't know that you have a lot of other options. I don't know that I love the idea of Tosh Baker, playing left tackle, but it can't be worse than what we have now. If you think about it, Anthony Knapp has allowed 11 pressures, according to Pro Football Focus, 11 pressures and 4 hits on the quarterback in 4 games. This is a third of the season. That puts him on pace for 33 pressures allowed from your left tackle. Well, think about this. The worst pass pro guy last year was Pat Coogan, who allowed 25 from guard in 13 games. The 33 number I'm giving you is just for 12 regular season games. The most pressures allowed in 2022 was Blake Fisher with 17. Your 2 offensive tackles in 2022 combined for 25 pressures allowed combined. Your left tackle's on pace for 33 in the regular season. He's on pace for 12 hits or sacks from the quarterback in the regular season. That's not only not good, that's bad. That's bad.
Yeah.
And that has to change. That's just not sustainable. You want to know one of the it's not the only reason, one of the reasons Riley Leonard is struggling to get comfortable in the pocket? That's one. That's one of them. And I would argue his pressure numbers are higher. Pro Football Focus only had him down for giving up 1 pressure against Miami of Ohio. That's not accurate. Like, he definitely had more than 1 in that game. So that would be mine. Trevor, what would yours be? What change? I mean, because again, it's with what we have now. Now, here's one. I'll ask you this, Trevor. So let's just say you agree with me now. Is it going to be similar to what I said, right?
Mine's actually a little different.
Okay.
I would entertain the idea of moving Emil Wagner to left tackle.
Okay. And then
I
so
would
it's
entertain it.
still
And
the
then plug
same
in
4.
Tosh to right. Yeah.
You just need 1 new one, right? That's not bad. My only pushback on that would be I don't want to – Emil's handling right tackle pretty well. I don't want to mess that up. If he's still your best option at left tackle, you have to consider it. So let me ask you this. So we still have the same 4, plus we'd make a change at one of the tackle spots, right? Or, what do you do when Billy Schrouth comes back, if Billy Schrouth comes back? Do you just take Rocco out? Now, I would say I need to see what Rocco does on Saturday against Louisville. But let's say Rocco plays against Louisville like he did against Miami, Ohio. What do you do when Billy Schrouth comes back?
I would evaluate where Sam Pendleton is at left guard, because I love the idea of Billy Schrouth at left guard. That's what I would look at, because Rocco has a lot of experience. And if he continues to play like he did against Miami of Ohio, Rocco's a fantastic run blocker. I like the idea of having a downhill, big, tough guy at right guard, somebody that Jeremiah Love and Jadarian Price can consistently run behind. Having Billy Schrouth at left guard, I think, would help Riley Leonard settle in the pocket more, knowing that somebody on his blind side has that experience and has that proven capability in pass protection. So it's probably where I would put him.
I like that idea. I would consider moving Billy Schrouth to left guard as well. And I'm also kind of looking forward to next year a little bit.
Yeah.
And thinking of the idea of having Charles Jagasaw and Billy Schrouth playing side by side, that excites me a little bit. And I think as a right guard, it takes a little bit of the pass pro pressure off of Sam Pendleton if he wins the job. Because like Sam Pendleton's a really good run blocker. That's the thing about Anthony Knapp. He's actually a really good run blocker. Like he
is.
I mean, as bad as he's been in pass pro, his run blocking's been pretty good so far this season, with the exception of a couple plays here and there. But I think overall, it's just you cannot have a left tackle that bad at pass pro. You just can't. And when things like as a quarterback, Trevor, you and I both played this position. When your left tackle gets launched into your chest when you're about to throw a touchdown pass, that gets in your head. That's exactly what happened. That gets in your head. When you've been hit multiple times by your own lineman getting thrown into you, that gets in your head worse than I got blindsided because my left tackle whiffed on a block. Because I know he's not going to whiff very often. But when your guy's getting driven into your face, that's when you get in a quarterback's head. When you're getting hit by your own lineman. And that's happened a few too many times this season, especially from the left tackle position.
Gets in your head. You start to think about a lot, especially when you're a quarterback like Riley Leonard that has struggled with injuries in the past. So that on top of, getting pushed back, having your left tackle basically being pushed back into your lap on a potential touchdown throw. Yeah, it's tough. It's definitely tough. I don't want to get the cart too far in front of the horse here, but next year, Notre Dame is going to have champagne problems on the offensive line, and it's going to be awesome because it will truly be which 11-game starter do we want to put here? And somebody who isn't an 11-game starter is a former 4-star recruit with 5-star upside and is a massive human being. You can start to make those decisions, and you get Charles Jagasaw back. Gerby Lambert will have another year of experience under his belt. So it's going to be interesting to watch it all unfold. I'm excited to see that. But as far as this year goes, got to figure out the left tackle position. Have to. And that is, I would assume that's going to be something that gets evaluated in the bye week, especially depending on what happens on Saturday.
There's a comment in the chat that perfectly sums up why the social media discussion is so ridiculous.
Yeah.
Irish Gordy Knott says Freeman has angered fans because he doesn't listen to the analytics, and also because they think he only listens to the analytics. That's what's so crazy, is because we have competing narratives that can't both be true.
Yeah.
And both sides are angry about something that can't possibly be true. Like, he can't possibly be listening to them too much or not enough. But it's like we get in our little, this is what I think the world should look like. And if you don't fit perfectly into that, then you're dead to me. That is IGK. That's a really, I saw that and I was like, oh my gosh, that so sums up what so much of the, like, I don't think normal fans are having that debate. I think that is something I believe to be a mostly strictly social media conversation. And if they're having it in real life, it's because they're having it on social media. You get what I'm saying? Like that's kind of where I'm coming from. And yeah, it drives me nuts. Let's go here.
Luke Breeding. Do you have any reservations that Kenny and CJ will get a fair shot to start next year if Steve is still around?
No, I think they'll both. I'll be shocked if those two kids don't get a fair shot. I think that how they view the backup quarterback role is different than how they're going to view the starting role. And I think there's a lot of people within the program that think Steve is a really good backup quarterback. And I also believe that there's people who believe that don't believe he's capable of thriving in a more full-time role. And some guys are great backup quarterbacks. They're not meant to be starters. Some guys are good rotation running backs. They're not meant to be starters. And good coaches know the difference. And don't put those guys that aren't capable. Like Donovan Edwards, I've said this for 2 years now. Donovan Edwards is a great complimentary back. He is not a starter. He's not a full-time back. Every time he's had to be the guy, it's not a shock that Donovan Edwards is starting to play now a little bit better now that Khalil Mullings is the guy. It's always been his thing. He's better as the number 2.
Mm-hmm.
And that's true for some guys.
Yeah, look, if Riley Leonard gets injured this year, I'm very comfortable with Steve Angeli coming into the game. I am.
To get out of a game.
Yeah, absolutely. Not for the rest of the year. I do think if Riley Leonard, God forbid, if he does go down, I think you start to evaluate who's going to take you on moving forward. But in the game, to finish out the remainder of the game, I'm very comfortable with Steve Angeli coming in because he does have that experience. And he has proven to come in roles where a backup quarterback, you don't ask him to take the full reins of an offense. It's very tailored. It's very, hey, this is your read. If they're not open, check down. If they're not open, take off.
That's
right.
That plays right into Steve's game, Trevor.
Yeah.
That's who he is.
Yes. Which is why he is a great backup quarterback. I think there's some people, again, getting onto this topic of you either have to think one or the other. Just because I don't think that Steve Angeli is going to take Notre Dame to a national championship, that doesn't mean that I think he is an awful quarterback. It's not at all.
I think he's a Power 5 quarterback at a Rutgers, at a Minnesota, something like that. I think he'd be a nice, solid Power 5 quarterback. That
100%. But I think that if Riley does go down, Steve is a great person to come in and fill in. Next year, Brian, to your point, you evaluate a QB2 differently than a QB1, and you have to start looking at the ceiling of your program and how far each individual person can take you. And I think that's going to factor in completely. I wholeheartedly believe that Kenny and CJ are getting a fair shot to start next year. Have to.
Yep.
Christopher Crosby. Brian, when you say buck sweep, I think wing T. Notre Dame doesn't use the fullback. So how does that work with their personnel groups, and how is it different from pin and pull? Does pin and pull only attack the perimeter?
For a buck sweep, you're attacking the perimeter to a degree, but you're trying to create a vertical insertion. So I don't know what the old wing T buck sweep look like. What I know is buck sweep to be is essentially down blocks, and now it'll depend on how the alignment is, but usually it's the ones that I've run. It's both guards pulling. Is usually how it'll be for me. I've seen some people do it with the center. I don't love having centers pull. To be honest with you, I'm not a big fan of that. But usually it's both guards. But it's down blocks, and you're getting it's like a wide kick. I mean, it's like a wide power almost, because you're down blocking and you're getting a wide. Usually he'll kind of kick out. That first guard is going to kind of get up and kind of level off. You're hoping to think like a corner, something like that. You're going to kick out. Backside puller wraps up. Similar concept to what you do with power and counter. Those type of things. So, I mean, that's what it is. It's pure pin and pull. So with what Notre Dame does, I mean, we've actually seen Notre Dame run buck sweep this season. And you're running it out of shotgun, so you either can have it with a jet sweep or you can have it with just an offset back where you just kind of ride it, and it's an outside run, and you're hoping to create, you're going to stretch it, create a vertical insertion lane, and then run through it. But you're trying to seal off the inside run lane with the pin block, the down blocks by the perimeter, and then obviously the edge block. I see a lot of teams use it with like a tight end is going to really have to be good at setting that edge and sealing that edge a lot of times. But pin and pull does definitely not only attack the perimeter. A lot of times it can be an off tackle play. You can run it as an A-B gap. Like that's a lot of the teams, like a lot of air raid teams will run like a G wrap or a tackle wrap play. That's technically pin and pull. It's just done a little bit differently. So it's not only a perimeter run, but a lot of teams use it as a perimeter run. Like when Notre Dame ran it last year with that, they'd have three guys pulling at times. It was meant to be an off tackle to outside run. It was not an A gap run, so a lot of it is outside. Yes. Yeah.
Aiden Regan. Xavier Watts is the next senior to go that hurts the soul. Who was the last senior to go that hurt the most?
Oh, man. I mean, I think losing, I'm just off the top of my head, losing, I'm trying to think of different teams, 22, 21. I mean, losing Alohi Gilman stung, losing Drew Tranquil, that one hurt. Just because they were really good players. I think, I tell you, I was bummed when Khalid Kareem left. I started having immediate thoughts of, this is why I'm pissed that they only played him in he played like 3 or 4 games as a freshman. That's it. Hardly played as a freshman. But that was back when you play a snap, your red shirt's over. I mean, man, what would Khalid Kareem have looked like in 2020? You know what I mean? Like, what would that team have been like if they had Khalid Kareem on that team in 2020? I just thought Khalid was such a clutch player, man. I just loved watching that kid play. Drew Tranquil's another one after 2018. Losing Quentin Nelson, that one, he was a senior. That one hurt. He was so good. He was so good. It was just off the top of my head. Those are the guys that kind of pop in my head.
Yeah, senior to go, because Foskey wasn't a senior when he left.
Well, he was a redshirt junior, so he was a senior. But yeah, he was.
Yeah, I mean, if we're going senior based on them not having any eligibility remaining, I won't. But Isaiah Foskey stung for me. That one was tough because there was a significant dip in Notre Dame's pass rush after he left. Gosh, I'm just trying to. Alohi Gilman is up there for me as well. Was Julian Love a senior?
Nope, junior.
Okay.
Yep, he was a junior. But yeah, losing him, that was like, man, you thought he'd come back. Yep. All right, let's get to some. We've got another one from BK's last brain cell, since we're still kind of talking O-line.
Yep. Do you think it's a chance Coach Rudolph is playing favorites with Knapp because he had a relationship with him prior to Notre Dame? Absher cannot be any less ready, and he's bigger.
I don't have any evidence of that, so I don't want to accuse him of that. I haven't been told that by anyone. I haven't had anyone hint at that. I'll say this. Has it popped in my mind? Yes, it has. But it's unfair for me to then project that onto Joe Rudolph just because I have the fear of it being true. I just have to think that if he was only playing him because of that, Mike Denbrock, Marcus Freeman, somebody's going to step in and say, no, that kid's not our best option there. Mike Denbrock's a former O-line coach. Like he knows if Anthony Knapp's a bad player and Selman Absher's clearly better than him, I have to think he would step in and say something. And I promise you, if Mike Denbrock felt passionate about somebody else starting, somebody else would be starting. So, I can't. And I think part of the thing that's hurt Selman Absher is they've moved him around so much. I mean, it's hard for a young lineman to get comfortable at a position when he's playing. I mean, he's literally in this season played left tackle, left guard, right guard. It's a redshirt freshman. If you're going to have him compete at something, he needs this. Like Anthony Knapp played one position all spring, all fall camp, left tackle. Sam Pendleton, when he moved from center to left guard, only focused on left guard. Whereas with Rocco, you're moving him from left to right, left to right, left to right every other practice. I don't care who you are. You're a college kid. You're going to have a hard time with that. You only have 10 starts under your belt. Well, yeah, of course this one guy's going to look better than you because he's only playing one position. He only has to master one thing. So my thing would be, look, if I don't know who my answer would be at left tackle other than Anthony Snap, I'm giving somebody a shot there. Hey, Sullivan, hey, Gerby, hey, Tosh, you're going to take left tackle reps today. We're going to work with you. We're going to see how comfortable you are in space, how comfortable you are playing left-handed. What your vision is like playing this position. Some guys don't see as well to one side than the other. There's all types of things that can factor into it. Some guys aren't coordinated with certain hands, so they can only pass set in one direction. That's a real thing, like I'm very my left arm is actually stronger than my right one, but I'm not nearly as coordinated with it, like at all. Like, so my wife she can bowl and write with both hands. I look like a toddler trying to write with my left hand. You know what I mean? Like it's just not, the way I am. Some guys are just not coordinated dropping left as they are dropping right. Just a reality because they've been playing this their whole life, and that's just kind of what they've done. So like people who are switch hitters tend to be people that were switch hitters their whole life in baseball, not someone who just learned it in my third year in major leagues. Now, some guys can do that, but most don't.
Sure.
Most guys, you're taught that at a young age, and you just eventually your body's got to get used to seeing the ball both ways. And it's not that you can't learn to swing, but it's seeing the ball a certain way. If my whole life I'm seeing the ball this way, now all of a sudden I got to see the ball this way. That's a different animal, man. Now it's in my head too. So there's just a lot of things that go into it. But I'm going to find out who else is comfortable at left tackle for the next couple weeks. Flat out. Sullivan Absher, you're not playing anything else but left tackle the next 2 weeks. We're going to see how you do. And then we're going to see how Anthony plays. And Gerby Lambert, let's get you some shots over here at left tackle and see how you play. Because the thing about a guy, and to his point, here's the thing about a guy like Absher and a guy like Gerby. They could make the same mistake Anthony Knapp does and not give up as much of a pressure because they're 30 to 40, 30 pounds bigger than he is.
Mm-hmm.
And they're so much longer that they can then recover. So if a 6'3.5" guy with, a certain wingspan kind of is late getting out of a stance, he's going to be a little different than a guy that's 6'7" with 2 to 3 inch longer arms is going to be able to do with 30 extra pounds. It's like when I get beat, I can recover a little better than you can because I'm taller, I'm longer, and I'm a lot heavier and similar strength. That's not always true because sometimes the 6'3.5" guy has longer arms and has more, is maybe weight room stronger, things like that. He has stronger hands. But by and large, there's a reason why those guys can handle that. Charles Jagusah could make, technique mistakes in pass pro, and he could still ride a guy outside of the quarterback and let the quarterback step into the pocket because he was so freaking big. Anthony Knapp's a much narrower player and not as heavy. So those things all factor in. I would flat out give somebody else a chance to learn that and see how they do. But I don't want to get into the whole he's playing favorites thing because I don't have any evidence of that. It could just be in practice, Anthony Knapp's their best player. And they're now learning that maybe he's struggling with that. But nobody else has shown themselves. Maybe it's just that nobody else is, hey, we know Anthony's a problem, but nobody's shown themselves to be a better option for us right now. That it could be. I've been in that. Trevor, anyone that's coached football has been in the, hey, you guys don't like the guy I have, but guess what? That's my best option.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So I'm not saying that I agree with that. I don't agree with that. But, maybe in his mind, it could just be that where it's not that he's playing favorites. It's just, okay, I'm not in love with the job Anthony's doing now too, but he's still playing better in practice than the guys that are competing for that spot as well.
I agree. Yeah, all options have to be on the table at this point, especially depending on how Anthony Knapp plays on Saturday. Saturday is just going to be such a big indicator with where some players are at. Christopher Crosby. Louisville gave up at least 4 pass plays of 25 yards or more last week against Georgia Tech. If you're Notre Dame, how do you take advantage of that matchup?
Well, one of the ways is like Georgia Tech did, just throw it over top of the defense. I think they had 2 post routes in that game for big plays. Take your shots, go balls, post routes, things like that. I think there's some other opportunities for big plays. There are some things that I would do with corner routes and overs that put their safeties in binds. with as aggressive as their linebackers are. I think you can find some stuff over the deep middle, Trevor, like if the linebackers are blitzing, as long as you can pass pro. And I've got sort of a concept that I really like to do is a big pivot for my outside guy. So I'm running smash, but I'm getting a big pivot against a team so I can try to occupy that corner more, run a high corner with my slot guy, and then bring a deep over route behind it. Because then if I know that I'm getting those linebackers to kind of come down, if that safety takes out this, and I can throw that over. The reason I like the pivot is because the pivot forces the corner to work out as opposed to just squatting on a hitch route where he can then kind of have his eyes on the over route. The pivot, kind of causes him to now my eyes have to kind of go out because I'm now working outside of the pivot, right? Which kind of opens that up. There's things that go into that. So that would be something I would do, like some kind of concept like that where you're trying to clear and bring somebody into that open zone to kind of create a catch and run situation down the field. I think there's some things you can do with motion and post-snap switches that I think could be effective to turn somebody loose. And then here's another one, Trevor. I am going to have some sort of free release by my backs where I'm running some kind of angle, some kind of seam, some kind of something with my running backs out of the backfield where I'm running everybody off, get them thinking they're about to beat us, and then I'm dropping an angle route right behind it, or I'm dropping some sort of not a screen, because screens can be read, but to where my back is going to run an angle route. He's going to run some kind of chase route, some kind of something where he's going to get right behind that pressure, and I'm going to hit him on the run for a big play. I mean, we've seen Notre Dame do stuff like that. Chris Tyree scored on a play like that a couple years ago. Audric Estime had 2 big gains on things like that a couple years ago. So big pass plays aren't just throwing it down the field. Sometimes you're trying to get this guy free at about 18, knowing that he's going to catch and run in that situation. So those are different things that I would do, Trevor. What are some other things that you might do to do that against this defense?
Yeah, Christopher, I'm using a lot of pre-snap motion to get my guys into favorable matchups against a very aggressive defense. And the second thing that I was going to touch on, Brian, is what you brought up. Get your running backs involved in the pass game against a very aggressive defense. They're going to send a lot of pressure. And you took the example literally right out of my mouth. I was going to bring up the Fiesta Bowl against Oklahoma State in 2021 when Chris Tyree ran that angle, that Texas route, whatever you want to call it, behind the defense. Entire field parted like the Red Sea, and he ran untouched for 46 yards.
Did that against Cal as well. Remember, he ran a seam route. It was a little. He ran the seam route for a touchdown against Cal. Remember that? So yeah.
So get your running backs involved in the pass game, and to your point, not just little screen passes, not just little flare routes. Get them involved, push the ball down the field, and I think you do that by getting your guys into favorable matchups. I like one thing that I think that they could implement a little bit more of as well is play action, especially with as aggressive of a defense as this is, because they will crash hard on the run, especially against Notre Dame, who proves that they can run the ball very effectively. So utilization of play action, pre-snap motion, all that will factor into them being able to push the ball down the field effectively.
Notre Dame's run a lot of sprint out last couple weeks. Got to find a way to use that to create a backside big play. Yeah. Something. I think of I brought this up a couple weeks ago, the touchdown pass Ian Book threw to Alizé Mack against Stanford back in 2018. Something like that where even if it's something as simple as you're telling that backside tight end, hey, man, I need you to come in first 2 times we run sprint. I need you to come back and communicate to me what they're seeing, what you're seeing backside. Hey, coach, man, listen, they are chasing hard. They're not eyeing us at all. Okay, cool. You do that. You just let them go and you just slowly drift back. Those are some things too. You got to find some ways to steal yards against teams like this. And those are ways that you can steal yards.
100%.
I'd like to see him kind of find some ways to do that.
Irish blooded. Favorite sport to play other than football? For example, do you golf, pickleball, etc.?
I don't do anything now. Trevor, I'm always working. I would love to find more ways to have more of a life, but haven't had one in a few years. But I actually did this summer, played pickleball with my wife a couple times, and I actually enjoyed it.
Nice.
So I'd like to do that more. And I love to bowl. I'm a very good bowler, or at least I was a very good bowler. So like when I was in middle school, I was in the all-city all-star team with high school kids and stuff like that. And I was a pretty good bowler. I didn't bowl from the time I stopped bowling in middle school and didn't bowl in a league again until I was married and almost 30. And I was terrible. I ended up with like a 170 average, but I was probably like at 130 for the first like several weeks because I hadn't bowled in forever. And I think the last bit I was like over 200 for like the last month or so or whatever of it. So, but hey, I still choked in the biggest moment, man. I had a 300. I had a perfect game going into the 10th, and I wasn't paying attention. This is back in Colorado. And I look up in the 9th frame and I'm like, okay, I've struck out so far. And then I went out in the 9th and got a Brooklyn strike. And then I looked at it, I was like, holy crap, I might bowl a 300. So I picked up my ball for the 10th frame and I don't think this is going to work. And I didn't hit the head pin either time. I went 6-0. I choked big time. And I haven't been in the league since. So I would actually like to do that again, to be honest with you. I've had some shoulder problems the last couple of years, and I'm hoping I'm kind of past that. But I like to bowl. I like to that. I don't like the golf. I like the golf if the company's good, because I suck at golfing, and I don't like golfing with people that take it real seriously. But if you're like out there to have fun and talk and BS and have a good time, yeah, I can golf with you because it's good exercise, and you know, it's fun, especially if you get a card. It can be fun, and you get out in the sun and all that. But when people take golf seriously, I'm not a good match with them because I'm terrible. Like, no, you got to count that stroke. Seriously, dude. Like, I'm going to shoot a 150. You don't have to worry about beating me. You know what I mean? Just like, let me drop this one. We're going to be here all day. So but I'm overall, I mean, I don't enjoy golf unless I'm with the right crew, because it's fun-ish, I guess. I don't love it, but it's just like, it's not something I take seriously. I just like to have fun. And, like we did that for my bachelor party. We went to golfing. It's me and my uncle and my best man at the time. They'd get real pissed whenever they make I'm like, you guys, this is not fun, because you guys are like trying to qualify for the PGA Tour or something today. It's like, guys, we're here to have fun. And that's why I just don't like to golf with people. Take it way too seriously. How about you, Trevor?
So my favorite sport to play other than football is golf.
Mm-hmm.
I am a big golfer though, and not too seriously, to your point. I never compete with anybody when I go out. I like golfing because I can compete with myself. I'm a very competitive person,
Mm-hmm.
and I need an outlet for that somewhere. And so that, and then my wife and I, we play down here in Indianapolis. There's like a rec league. It's like a company. It's called Circle City Athletics. And you can sign up, get your friends, you join a league. So we play a lot of indoor volleyball, which is a lot of fun. So we play that a lot. But Brian, I mean, as far as golf goes, I'm more along the lines of you. I'm fine at it, but I'm not looking to join any tours or anything. I'm more out there for the company, man.
Right. So then we could have fun together, even though you take it a little bit more, you like to challenge yourself. That's fine. It's when people get mad about it and they're not having fun. And it's like, all right, man, you kind of ruined it.
Oh yeah. No, all of our group of friends down here, all of us guys, like the only time we get upset in golf is like internally, and we don't let it show to the people that we're hanging out with. So, yeah. But yeah, no, I hear you. Just a good excuse to get outside and, hang out with everybody. It's a lot of fun. But I'm with you. But golf, volleyball, basketball, all that fun.
They said, what about fishing or pool? I've never really been a big fan of playing pool. I do like to fish. The problem is I don't like to clean fish. And I don't like to catch fish and throw them back. It's like, I think that's kind of jacked up, send this maimed fish out back into the world. But I used to go fishing as a kid all the time, but my uncles would always be that, like, we would catch the fish. We'd take them over to my grandma's. My grandma would clean them all, and then we'd have a big fish fry, but I'd have to clean them now. And I don't like to do that. I'm not a big fan of that action. So I don't fish, unfortunately, but that's something that I would probably rather enjoy. It's just being out in the, especially because I'd go fishing at night. As a kid, that's just what we did. We went fishing at night, and that's probably what I would do. It's quiet. It's peaceful. You get to think. And I got a lot of great memories with my uncles and my dad fishing when we were kids. Like, there was one time, because my dad's kind of a city guy, like he would fish with them. But we were out one night, and my dad was like, every time he'd cast it out, it's like he was catching a white bass, man. I mean, he was on fire. He had like 15 of them in the first hour. And so my mom, who has spoiled my dad from the day they met as teenagers, she made him a dinner, so like a snack, and it had like popcorn. And my uncles were like, Barry, do not eat that. And like, he's like, why? He's like, if you eat that food, you won't catch another. My dad being, I know everything, is like, no, I'll be fine. I'll eat. And he ate the pot and did not catch another fish the rest of the night because he got the stuff on his hands. And so whenever he put the bait on, that'd be all up on the bait, and didn't catch another fish the rest of the night. But yeah, I had one night, I was with my Uncle Marty, and I was stuck on the rocks, I thought, about 4 or 5 feet from the shore. This is at one of the reservoirs in Lyman. I'm like going like this, and all of a sudden this giant smallmouth starts flopping around. I'm like, holy crap. And he ended up breaking the line. But like, if I would have known it was a smallmouth, you know what I mean? But we couldn't see, it was so dark. So I've got some great fishing stories from when I was a kid. But again, I'd catch the fish and then take them with my grandma's and she'd clean them. We don't have that option here. We don't have any family around town. So, but yeah, I did kind of like to fish. I don't consider that like sport. I don't know. Like, I'd like to fish because I'd like to do more things to be able, like, we're going to have a garden next year. I want to start having more natural, non-processed, who knows what they're putting in it, foods, you know what I mean? So, but yeah, I used to fish as a kid, but I haven't gone fishing, gosh, since I probably was a kid, to be honest with you. But that's something I would rather enjoy. I like to fish as a kid. I just don't like what comes afterwards. Not a big fan of that.
Fair
I'm not
enough.
a blood and guts guy. I'll be honest with you. You know what I mean?
Fair enough.
So that wouldn't be as much fun. Yep. And it's funny because people know I like guns, but I don't hunt. I don't have any desire to kill another human being unless it's in self-defense. And the last I checked, the deer aren't trying to kill me. So that's why I don't hunt. I'm kind of against hunting for just sport. I'm not a big fan of that. Like, I'm not a fan of trophy hunting, just killing an animal just cause. But hunting for food, like my uncles would deer hunt as kids, and they would put the trophy, but they would take all the meat off of that and then feed the whole family. Bring some to us, bring some to grandma. That's a little different. That's just my personal opinion. I'm not projecting on anybody else. This is my personal opinion of what works for me. But I do need to find some hobbies. I do need to find some hobbies because I don't have a lot that I do other than work. So it's probably why I'm so cranky lately.
We'll do a mailbag together out on the golf course. How about that? We'll get out there.
There you go. Or maybe we'll go out to the range one day or something like that, or we'll go out fishing and do a online mailbag from. Hold on a second. Trevor's got a big one on the reel. Give me a second. So yeah, there you go.
Buy, sell, hold. Trev won't catch anything the rest of the day.
That's right. That's right. Buy, sell, hold. Brian doesn't know what he's doing. So buy. So here we go. Let's get rocking and rolling.
All right. Domer Grizz, what do you need to see this weekend to know Notre Dame left nothing in the tank heading into the bye week? Effort. High effort. And that's what I'm going to be looking for. This has been such an inconsistent season, up and down of 1 week. Notre Dame shows up and they look like they could take on the world and they're playing with their hair on fire. And then literally 7 days later, it looks like they're clocking into a 9 to 5, getting ready to sit in a cubicle, So for me, that's what I need to see, win or lose. And I do wholeheartedly believe, let me preface, if Notre Dame plays with heart and passion and intent, they're going to win this football game. I wholeheartedly believe that. But win or lose, I need to see a team that wants to be there. I need to see a team that's playing with their hair on fire and is getting excited and celebrating the wins and not letting the losses drag them down too much on a series-to-series basis. I got to see that. I got to see the head coach come out fired up. I want to see the sideline fired up and celebrating the wins with the rest of the guys. That's what I need to see.
It's about flying around. It's about pads popping. It's about you're delivering the contact, not taking the contact. It's about being the aggressor, because leaving it all out there is not just on the players.
Yeah.
It's also on the coaches. Don't be concerned. Like, this is, the biggest reason why I've hated conservative coaching is if I'm going to go down, I want to go down swinging. I don't want to go down. It's like, if you're going to beat me in a fight, there's a lot of people that could probably beat me in a fight. But I promise you, you're gonna basically gonna have to probably kill me because, like, you know what I mean? Like, I'm gonna leave it all out there. You know what I'm saying? And it's like that with anything. Like, you could beat me, you may beat me in this, but it's not because you outworked me. It's not because you spent more time watching film. You spent more time thinking about this. You spent more time practicing this. No, you're just gonna have to outplay me. You're gonna have to outfight me. You're gonna have to outhit me. And for Notre Dame, it's like, I don't want to go down just because, well, we probably should have called a couple more of these. We probably should have been more aggressive. No, I want to go to, hey, we went after them and it just didn't work out. And that's just my mindset and my motto as a coach. And I just can't stand playing not to lose. I hate that. I hate it. I hate it. I hate it.
Hate it.
So I want to see the coaches and the players say, you got nothing to lose, fellas. Go out there and play ball. Like just play hard. You're the aggressor. Play calling wise, you're the aggressor as far as, no, we're taking the fight to you. I mean, like, you could tell early in that game that Purdue was a little shook by the Notre Dame defense because they were just like, Hudson Card is like, he'd make one guy miss and then somebody else is right there to drill him. And that happened like 5-6 times in the first half where he would like make somebody miss and then just two guys hit him at once. Like, dude, that gets in your head. It's like running back, you make a guy miss and you just get pile drived and you're getting drilled. And it's like, you're trying to make cuts, and you're like, where are they coming? There's no way there's only 11 guys in the field. There's no way. They're everywhere. That's when you know a defense is rolling. 100%. And I want to see that. I want to see them aggressive. And you know what the big thing is I want to see them having fun.
Yes.
Like, just like, dude, get, unclench your you-know-whats and go out there and play ball, man. Leave it all out there. I've never regretted a loss in my life. The regrets I've always had is I didn't prepare enough for that. I knew I should have spent more time on the third down film. I knew I should have done. The regret of not giving it everything you have is that, like, I don't look back. We got beat by Mountain Union, and I've never thought twice about that loss because I'm like, we prepared great. Our kids played their butts off. That team was just way better than us. I have no regrets. We left it all on the feet, all out there. The losses that I have regrets for are the losses where I'm like, you know what? I should have spoke up more when the head coach said we're going to do this or we're going to do that. I should have spoke up more. I should have done this. I should have done that. It's the regret of not giving it your all. I've never had a game where I felt I left it all out there that haunts me. Never. I should have practiced harder. It's that stuff. And so I just want to see that mentality from this football team. Because if they play like that the rest of the way, I don't know that they lose the rest of the regular season. 100%. And they won't lose Saturday. If they just leave it all out there, I don't think Louisville can beat them. I really don't.
Win or lose, no player, no team, no coach should walk off the field questioning whether their team wanted it more or not. And that's what I want to see get completely eliminated on Saturday. 100%.
Yep.
Aiden Benami, not being rude, can you think of another player who has had the skill set to succeed like Colsey and his career play out this way? Is he even in the 2 to 3 deep? Unfortunate, to be honest.
Well, I mean, look, sometimes when you're at a place like Notre Dame, you're a good player. There's just other good players in front of you. Deion Colsey is a really good football player. Just Bo Collins is a better football player.
Yeah.
Jaden Thomas is a better football player. Chris Mitchell's a better football player. I expected more out of Deion Colsey, but I mean, that happens sometimes. It's like every time a kid doesn't, like Rocco Spindler, why hasn't he panned out? I'm like, well, he earned a starting job as a redshirt sophomore and started 10 games until he got hurt. And when he got hurt, a guy that was even better than he was out of high school got a chance to shine, and he shined, and he's a starting guy now. You know what I mean? It's like sometimes you get beat out by just better players or different circumstances. And so, that doesn't mean he was a bust. Like, that's what I hate when people say, well, the guy didn't pan out, he's just a bust. Well, yeah, but there was somebody else at his position that was just better than he was and turned out to be a pretty flippin' good football player. That there's reasons why. And so, I just, is Deion someone who really wanted it? I don't know. Maybe I was wrong on his talent. Maybe he just wasn't as good as I thought he was. Who knows? But it's just not something I think about because it's not like the guy they're putting out there. Man, if only Deion would have figured out they might be okay in the boundary. I'm like, no, their boundary's pretty flipping good. Both of them are pretty good football players. It's just, that's life when you're at a place like Notre Dame. Yeah, I was fine, but somebody else was just better. Like Deion Colsey and Jordan Johnson are two completely different types of didn't pan out. One guy didn't pan out, just didn't go his way. The other guy didn't pan out because he had a horrible attitude, didn't want to work,
Yeah.
just valued certain things off the field more importantly than doing the work in football, which is why he not only didn't succeed at Notre Dame, but he didn't succeed at UCF or anywhere else he went.
Yeah.
So there's all types of reasons, and Deion Colsey's not that type of. It's not in that situation.
Yeah, I think this question's a little interesting because everybody wants Notre Dame year in and year out, which they should recruit very high caliber athletes. And the realism of that situation is at the end of the day, you can get 85 5-star recruits in theory. It's not going to happen, but you could. You can still only start 11 on offense and defense.
Mm-hmm.
And there's going to be players sometimes that get passed up. And it's not, to your point, Brian, it's not a waste of talent. It's not a, I think of Julian Fleming, who was a 5-star receiver who was at Ohio State and felt like every year he was just waiting for his year and waiting for his year. It's not that he's a bad football player. It's Marvin Harrison Jr. was a generational talent. It's because Jeremiah Smith came in as a true freshman and is so far proving to be a generational talent. That doesn't mean Julian Fleming's bad. So I'm with you. I understand where you're coming from, but it's, I will say it's unfortunate in the sense that I would love to watch Deion Colsey play because it feels like whenever he is on the field, good things happen. Think of USC in 2022 and the screen pass he caught for a touchdown in 23 against Navy. So always a what if, but I don't think it's because he's bad. So I'm with you.
All right.
ND Milton fan. Are you surprised by the lack of play action this year?
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. No, I am, Nathan. I mean, a team this good at running football should be a little bit better with play action. I'm not someone who wants to run play action 50 times a game. I think sometimes fans, we should throw the ball down. What does that look like for you? Like, well, in NCAA 25 or CFP 25, I throw like at least 9 go routes a game. Well, okay. Okay. It's not real life. Play action has a time and a place for it. And I've seen teams that will call play actions on 3rd and 12. And they're like, why are you calling that? It's because that's the protection. You can only get to that protection on play action. So you just get and you'll still see the quarterback carry it out. It's like, okay, can't you just call the play action protection and not actually do the play action? Whatever. I've always found that kind of funny, but I mean, yeah, I'd like to see more play action. 3-4 a game, I would like to see at least 3 or 4 a game. Yeah, I think that'd be wise. Be wise.
I would definitely like to see more play action this year. And my biggest gripe with play action, and this is a little nitpicky, but I think it's very relevant. If you are going to run play action, sell the fake, please. That's my next ask. Yeah. Like it's not good enough to just like hold your hand out and like fake ride the running back for a half a second for the sake of saying it was a play action pass. That's my biggest thing. It's funny you bring up the NCAA 25 thing. I have a buddy where we get into football debates all the time, and what he resorts to is naming off plays that he's memorized from Madden and NCAA to talk about what can make an offense.
Bro, that's a video game, right?
Yeah.
That's not real life, right?
Just because you heard yeah, I won't even get into it. It's fine.
Yeah, I'm with you. I am also a little bit on that nitpicky on play action because I was actually that's one thing I was really good at was selling play action fakes. And let's just say I got tackled a lot without the ball in high school and college, and even in middle school a little bit. I got body slammed one time in middle school because I ran a play action fake so well that the guy thought I had the ball and he grabbed me and I wasn't prepared for it, and he body slammed me. So yeah, it's like sell it. Sell it. Now you can oversell it to where you don't get your eyes around on the read
totally.
and now the route's too far and the timing is important. But yeah, I mean, it's sell it. At least give me initial, like really hard, like exaggerate that ride.
Totally.
Especially now in this shotgun era, because it's a lot easier to read a defense when you're in a shotgun play action than it was when I'm talking about shotgun as a kid. It's like under center, we'd run like the fake the fullback handoff and then fake the counter and then the waggle. And I was really good at that. And so, yeah, I get a little bit annoyed by guys that give the weak play action fakes and in downs where like the third down thing, it's like, whatever. It's almost like a timing mechanism almost.
Sure.
But yeah, first and second down, third and short, man, give me a good fake.
Yep.
Yep.
Yep. 100%. 100%. 100%. 100%. 100%. 100%. 100%. 100%. 100%. 100%. 100%. 100%. 100%. 100%. 100%. 100%. 100%. 100%. 100%. 100%. 100%. 100%. 100%. 100%. 100%. 100%. 100%. 100%. 100%. 100%. 100%. 100%. 100%. 100%. 100%. 100%. 100%. 100%. 100%. 100%. 100%. 100%. 100%. 100%. 100%. 100%. 100%. 100%. 100%. 100%. 100%. 100%. 100%. 100%. 100%. 100%. 100%. 100%. 100%. 100%. 100%. 100%. 100%. 100%. 100%. 100%. 100%. 100%. 100%. Aidan Benami. Do you think bringing Botello back, if he wants to, is a good move?
As long as you think his mindset would be a good place where he's okay if he's not the only guy or the guy, then yeah, I'm fine with that. I mean, look, he's a good football player. If he has the right attitude, as he showed this year, he can be a really key part of your football team.
Mm-hmm.
If he understands, like, hey, next year, I may not be as dominate the reps as much as I did this year, then sure. Yeah, absolutely. Anytime I'm talking about bringing a kid like that back, Trevor, it's always like, well, as long as he's got the right attitude about distribution of reps, then sure. If you're going to bring a guy back and he gets beat out or maybe isn't playing as much as he wants, is it going to be a problem? That's the kind of guy you got to avoid. But as long as Jordan has the right mindset back, yeah. And it's probably smart for him to have that mindset because it'd be good for him, or especially during the season, not to play a ton of reps, as he's coming back from the knee injury. So, yeah, like you never tell a guy like that. Because let's say Boubacar Traore emerges as like the best defense. He's the best D end in college football next year. He's still not playing every snap. You still need someone to take some of that pressure off of him, especially over a 16-game season.
Yeah.
So yeah, you want some of those other guys to be that. So yeah.
I will always err on the side of bringing back good talent. Pending mindset being correct, absolutely.
Yeah.
Jason Burkhart. If it's a rainy, windy day, who does that favor?
I am torn on this one. My initial thought is Notre Dame because twofold. Number one is Notre Dame isn't as reliant on the pass game as Louisville is. And Notre Dame has an extra run game weapon that they can use that Louisville can't, meaning a quarterback. The counter to that is, but Louisville also has a much better run defense than Notre Dame has. And so that's kind of my other takeaway is, because it was a windy day against Northern Illinois and Notre Dame pretty much just didn't even try to use that to their advantage in either capacity. And it helped Northern Illinois because they were still able to run on Notre Dame. And so it just depends on how good does the Notre Dame run defense play. If I knew that the Notre Dame run defense was going to be ready to play and they were bringing it that day, then I'd say advantage Notre Dame. But, Notre Dame runs it better than Louisville, but Louisville's better stopping it than Notre Dame. So I don't know how much. I would just say I would ultimately probably give the edge to Notre Dame because they have a quarterback that can make plays with his legs, whereas Louisville can't. But then you could counter by saying Louisville has a quarterback that can drive it through the wind a little bit more than Notre Dame's quarterback can drive it through the wind. And so then I would say, okay, well, what kind of wind? Is it coming from behind or is it a crosswind? If it's a crosswind, that's probably advantage Louisville in the throwing game. If it's a vertical wind, then it advantage whoever's throwing with the wind. It's advantage that team. So it just depends. There's a lot of things to factor into, but I'd probably give a slight edge to Notre Dame, but I don't think it'd be overly impactful unless the Notre Dame run defense shows up in its best form.
I would call it a split advantage. And honestly, I'm almost opposite of what Brian thinks because Louisville's defense is already going to game plan for the run. And all of our keys to victory, we talked about how Riley Leonard at some point is going to have to push the ball down the field. And ideally, I would love Notre Dame to be able to line up in 21 or even 22 personnel and run the ball down Louisville. So I just don't think that is going to happen because Louisville does have a really good run defense. So Louisville's goal on defense is to make Notre Dame one-dimensional as possible and force Riley Leonard to throw the ball because that is not the strength of the offense. If you add elements into that to where they're just probably not going to try to do it anyways, I would have to think that would favor for Louisville. But on the flip side of that coin, to Brian's point, Notre Dame does have 3 dynamic runners and can put them all on the field at the same time if that does happen. But I do think Notre Dame's going to have to push the ball down the field to some capacity in this game to win. And I think if weather hinders that, that's just another factor. So we'll see. Ronnie Reeves asks, with the limited play we've seen with Leonard Moore, can we assume he can step into Mickey's role and not lose anything?
Well, to a degree, I think Leonard Moore's played well so far this year, and I think he's very talented, but he's been a boundary guy. Now you're asking a true freshman to have to play both corner spots, and that's not an easy thing to do because it's a situation where Yeah, a veteran can play both, but do I really want Leonard Moore to cross train? I'm trying it because he's my best option. I got to try it, but it's a bigger challenge asking him to do that because he's playing a lot more in space as the field corner than he is at the boundary corner. So, but I don't think we can assume that he'll be able to do that because of the responsibilities involved. But to your point, to your question, Ronnie, I do believe he has the physical talent to do both. Like, I'm not at all worried about whether or not Leonard Moore has the physical talent to play boundary and field. I flat out know he does. But can he pick up the assignment coverage responsibilities that are different? Can he get used to playing where he's got a lot more room to ground to cover in the run game and different things? That's a greater question for me than the other way around. So yeah, that's I wouldn't assume it. Is he capable of it? Yes. Am I going to assume that he's going to do that? No, I would not assume that. I don't assume anything about a freshman. They got to show it, prove it to me. But I do believe Leonard has the talent to do so, Trevor.
Yep, I agree. I agree with you. Not a whole lot to add there.
Yep.
Joseph Barrett. Sorry. Am a frustrated New York Giants fan. Brian, what is your opinion of Brian Daboll as a play caller? He was Alabama's offensive coordinator at one point.
I'm going to let you take this one, Trevor, if you have an opinion on that. I'm not familiar a whole lot with Brian Daboll. I know he was I didn't study his offense at Bama. I think he was there in 15 or 16. What year was he at Alabama? He was only there for a year, correct?
Yeah, he wasn't there long.
Let me go look and see what year he was there. He was there in 17. Their offense wasn't great in 17, but they were also had a sophomore freshman quarterback battle. They won a championship, but I didn't think their offense was that good that year. But I couldn't tell you schematically why it was his fault that they weren't as good that year. I couldn't tell you that. And I haven't watched the NFL with any seriousness in a long time. So I couldn't tell you. I wish I had an answer for you, but I don't. I don't know enough about him to know if he's good or not.
Yeah, Joseph, I hear you. I watched the game last night. I can understand why you're frustrated. 5 red zone trips, essentially 5 field goals. It's not going to be enough to win for sure, especially against an offense like the Cowboys that can put up points when they want to. So I do think that the Giants last night were not helped out by, I think Devin Singletary the last 2 weeks had close to or over 100 total yards of offense in week 2 and week 3. And last night, I think he had 37 total, which is tough. Not being able to run the ball in the red zone is tough because at the end of the day, that does handicap you as a play caller. So, but offensively, I think Daniel Jones played a fine game. The stat sheet doesn't look sexy because he doesn't have a touchdown on it, but Malik Neighbors had, I think, 12 receptions.
12 for 115.
Yeah. Wan'Dale Robinson had, I think, 10 or 11
catches
for
71.
70. Yeah. So they were able to move the ball down the field. They just stalled in the red zone. And I'm a huge proponent of you have to be able to run the ball in the red zone. So, I mean, to draw back to Notre Dame, that's why they're lethal in the red zone, because Riley Leonard adds that separate dimension, and it's tough. Dallas, I think, allowed like 1.4 yards a carry last night.
1.1.
Goodness gracious.
24 carries, 26 yards.
So to answer your question from a play calling standpoint, you got to look at different things to help open up your run game. But I hear you. It was a tough game last night.
Well, and if I'm doing this whole fandom thing right, it's still Daniel Jones's fault, right? Isn't that how it works? So it's still his fault that they couldn't run the football somehow.
They should put in the backup.
Yep. Agree.
Jeff Fluke. With the roster expanding to 105, would you expect the additional spots to be 3 stars with high potential?
In some instances, sure. I mean, I think in other cases, you're still going to bring in, like, there's been years where, like, man, we would love to have brought in 2 running backs this year, but we only had room for 1. So you bring in 2, and they're both 4-star guys. You know, you just have to be careful, because if you're bringing in a bunch of high-ranked kids that think they're going to play as freshmen, there's going to be more kids not playing, and now you run the risk of more unhappy campers. So you got to be you got to be careful with that. But sometimes it's going to be, man, we were really torn on every year. You're like, there's 3 or 4 positions where you got to make some tough decisions on roster numbers. Well, now you don't have to. So 3 or 4 of those additional spots are going to go to more of your top targets that you would have otherwise turned down. And then after that, and I still think the walk-on program is good there. I mean, still bring in some kids that are the higher level walk-ons. I would maybe use a scholarship one year on a Leo Schuyler type of athlete. Now, Leo's been banged up a lot, so he hasn't really had a chance to do, but I remember watching his film in high school thinking, like, this guy's really good football player. You know what I mean? Like, I don't know that he's necessarily like a future, Chris Fink type of guy, but this is you love to have a kid like this on your scout team because he's going to go down there and give your defense a look. There's still value to bringing in guys like that. You're going to see Anthony Rizak's be on scholarship type situations and things like that. Like, I would imagine the Rizak family might be one of the happiest group of people on campus with this new expanded roster thing, because if you're Notre Dame, you'd be nuts not to give Anthony Rizak one of those scholarships, in my opinion.
Yeah.
So, guys like that are gonna bring a lot of value as well. But there's also some top targets that you're going to want to bring in. Like, man, we like these 2 tight ends. We thought they both could play, and they were both highly ranked. But we only had room for one. Well, now you bring them both in, and go that route. So, but in a lot of instances, I do think you're going to see more of the program type of guys fill spots 90 to 105. Like, I think now your scholarship guys that you look are going to be more 85 to 90, and you go a little past 85 with those type of guys, but 90 to 105 is still going to be the program guys that we're going to bring that kid in. He's going to be here for 4 years. He's going to be a great teammate. Maybe he ends up playing for us someday. Maybe he's just a great teammate. Maybe he's a special teams guy. That's okay.
Yep.
But we're going to still bring that guy in. And, like Jordan Faison and Luke Tallage probably would have been immediate scholarship players for me now in this era, because I want to make sure that I don't lose a kid like that to another school that may give them a scholarship, that type of thing. But
yeah,
and those would fit into the 3-star with high potential type of thing. They're not going to be walk-ons anymore. They're going to be scholarship guys right away. And those are the guys. That's where I want to fill most of those spots, Trevor.
Mike Anello in 2008 definitely would have been a scholarship guy if they would have expanded it earlier. He was one of my favorite players to watch. I wanted a number 37 jersey, but I could not find one. But yeah. Oh well. Iden Vanami. How about Hugh Freeze throwing his players under the bus? Then you see his old players and other people talking bad about Hugh this week as well. What a guy.
Hugh Freeze is one of, in my opinion, the scummiest coaches in college football. And I find him personally offensive. The reason I find him personally offensive is because he puts on this outward, I'm a strong Christian type of guy. And I think it's a total fraud. And you don't live your life the way that Hugh Freeze has lived his life, and you don't treat people the way you treat people. You don't encourage recruits to lie to other schools if you're someone who, truly actually believes in the things that you claim you believe as a Christian. And so I find that personally offensive. Do I do things that are sinful? Of course I do. Do I do them knowing that they're sinful? Yeah, that's what repentance is all about. That's what, prayers of forgiveness is all about. You read the Lord's Prayer, you know what I mean? And it's like, okay, it's like, there's part of that's a prayer of repentance. And so I just find him especially scummy in that regard, where an Urban Meyer, I don't know that he ever pretended to be some moral leader, even though I dislike him because I don't find him to be an overly moral person. It's disappointing because I think he's such a great football coach in so many different ways that you find out some of the personal things. Well, that's disappointing. But Hugh Freeze isn't even, to me, I think he's an overrated football coach. I think he's a good football coach. He's a good offensive mind, but he's always been a bit of an overrated football coach because of stuff like this. So at the end of the day, your players don't believe in you because they don't think you believe in them. And so they're not going to give you everything the way that a coach, like this thing is like Urban Meyer, you say whatever you want about him, but his players played hard for him because they trusted him. I may not, trust him around my attractive mother, but you know what I mean? Like I trust him to, when he tells me I need to do something, I'm going to do it because I trust him because I know he's the best at what he does. I just think Hugh Freeze is just he is everything that's wrong. He's an example of, if you want to say like, what's the epitome of the type of coaches that give other coaches a bad name?
Yeah.
That's it right there.
Yeah.
Smart guy in football, but just not a good coach. It's different. Being smart doesn't make you a good coach. And yes, he's a smart guy, but you know, I just really despise Hugh Freeze in a lot of ways. And this is true before all the stuff with Deuce Knight. And I laugh at Liberty hiring him as their head football coach. Like, you guys are such a joke. But I've known that since high school. That's why I didn't go to Liberty when all my other friends were going to Liberty.
Fair enough. Yeah, fair enough. I mean, it's kind of like picking the lesser of two evils. What's bad? Somebody that's morally not right but knows it, or somebody that claims to be awesome and self-righteous but is still not morally self-right, you know? So I'm with you. I get it.
Yep. Yeah, Hugh Freeze. My goodness gracious. What a piece of
John Leahy. How important is it for Kalen DeBoer to keep the Georgia game close from a perception standpoint?
Well, I think it's vital. I mean, we talked about this yesterday, Trevor. I think it's vital that this game be close one way or the other. And I said this to Bill yesterday. If Alabama loses a dogfight, Bama fans aren't going to be happy, but they're going to spin it correctly into, listen, we lost 20-some players to the portal this offseason. You know, this game might look different if we still had Ja'Cory Brooks and Caleb Downs and, you know, guys like that, the transfer. Who was the name you said?
Isaiah Bond. I
mean, if you still had those players still on this team, you look a lot different, you know. It's very true. And so, you know, he'll reload and do and you know, you say that. If they get blown out, it's like, okay, Saban lost to Kirby, but he never got blown out like that. He blew Kirby out, but even the title game that ended up like not being close at the end, that's because they had a pick six at the end of the game.
Yeah.
Because before that, it was, I mean, Bama still had a chance to come back and win that game late. But I think I predicted Bama to win. I think Bama's going to win this game. I do. And I think there's more pressure on Kirby Smart to win than there is on Kalen DeBoer to win.
100%.
The pressure on DeBoer is that it's got to be competitive. But if you lost to Saban in his last game and you lose to his replacement in the first game you face him, now it's like, okay, you had that 1 year that you beat Bama. Outside of that, has Kirby Moore beat Bama outside of the rematch game in 2021? Right? I mean, where they were then down 2 receivers. I'm actually going to look that up. Did they beat Bama again since then? I'm looking that up right now. I'm going to Winsipedia, which is a great way. Yeah, correct. Since 2000, the prior to the rematch in 21, Georgia had not beaten Bama since 2007. And so you needed a rematch, and you needed their entire receiving core to get injured before you could beat Alabama if you're Kirby Smart. Saban's gone. You should control this series now. And if you lose to Kalen DeBoer in your first time, it's something like, there's some problems, even if it is at Bama, you know? So, yeah, I think there's a lot more pressure on Kirby Smart. I didn't realize that. They had not beaten Bama since 2007 prior to that. They lost in 2008, 12, 15, 18 twice.
20.
Sort of size. It was in the championship game, 17, and then they lost in December of 18. They lost in 2020 in Tuscaloosa. Then they lost in 21 in the SEC title game. Then they got a rematch in the championship game and then lost last year in the SEC title game.
Well, because I think if you're a Georgia fan, you can hang your hat on, well, Nick Saban just doesn't lose to his coaching tree. Like, you can go back and look at that. I think that's why Texas's win last year in Tuscaloosa was just such a monumental win for Texas, because not only was it Steve Sarkisian beating Nick Saban, it was, I mean, Alabama just doesn't lose in Tuscaloosa.
Only the third time he'd only lost to Jimbo once. He lost to Kirby once in a rematch, and then Sark last year. Just not something he did very often.
But the problem for Georgia and why Kirby Smart's under so much pressure is you can spin the narrative that Kirby Smart can't beat Nick Saban. And if I'm a Georgia fan, you can hang your hat on, well, nobody beats Nick Saban. None of his coaching tree does.
Right.
But if you lose this game, it's, so Kirby just can't beat Alabama.
right?
Like as a team. And so that's going to be so much more added pressure to him. Whereas Kalen DeBoer, you're going to have that pressure because you're taking over from one of the greatest, if not the greatest college
Sure, we
football
can at
coach.
least agree on this, Trevor. He's the greatest of this generation.
Yeah.
Without a debate. Now, is he better than Rockney or Bear or what? That's a different conversation for a different
Totally.
day. No debate. He's the best of this generation.
Yes,
Last 30 years, he's the best head coach we've seen.
Yep, absolutely. And for Kalen DeBoer, when you're stepping into those shoes, I don't think anybody was talking about Alabama being on the national championship train. I mean, I'm sure people in Tuscaloosa were.
There were
So.
people predicting Bama SEC to go 8-4 this year.
I saw that. Mm-hmm.
I was like, you guys are nuts. This is still going to be a good football team.
Yeah, Kalen DeBoer's a fantastic coach.
But Georgia fans won't think that. A lot of SEC fans don't think that because, well, the guy coached at Fresno and Washington and Sioux Falls. Who cares? I'm like, well, you know.
Go back and look what he did with that Washington team.
Exactly.
I beg you. Yeah, yes. I get it.
Yes.
I get it.
Yes. And he won a title like 4 out of his last 5 years at Sioux Falls.
Yeah.
Okay, it's Sioux Falls, but he still dominated. You know, he even won at Indiana's in his OC, man. You know what I mean? Like, the guy can flip and coach.
Yeah, I mean, Washington before he took over was a sub 500 team.
4-8.
Yeah, and then Kalen DeBoer goes, what was it, like 26 and 3 or something?
And 4. No, 26 and 3.
Yeah, 26 and 3, which is just, I mean, that's crazy. So, yep. I definitely think the pressure is on Kirby Smart for sure.
Here's the crazy part about 25 and 3. Excuse me, they went 11 and 2 his first year, not 12 and 2. So
okay.
Looking at this Winsipedia thing, you know, from 08. So Bama starting in 08, Bama went 5, 6, 7, 8-1 against Georgia. Do you know that only one of those games was in Tuscaloosa? And that was in the COVID year. Every other game was either in Athens or Atlanta or the national title game because you had in 2008 it was in Athens, in 2015 it was in Athens, and in between that the only time they played was in the SEC title game in 2012.
Mm-hmm.
Then they played in the college football national championship game in 2018. That was the 2017 season because remember Georgia played Auburn in the SEC title game. Bama got in despite not being one of the top 2 teams besides not winning the West. Bama won that game. Then the next time they played was the SEC title game after the 2018 season, which Bama won. The next year, COVID year, they played in Tuscaloosa. Bama won. And then in 21, they played in the SEC title game, then the national title game. They played as many games in Indianapolis as they've played in Tuscaloosa during that stretch.
That's wild.
Yeah.
Huh.
Yep. So, which is one of my issues with that they never scheduled. They didn't schedule this, hardly ever schedule this game, which I thought was a problem. We'll probably see that more moving forward.
Yeah.
So, I want to comment here from Brett Courier. Loving your commentary, Trevor. Clear, concise, and well thought out. Great addition to the IB Nation leadership. I agree. I think he's spot on.
Appreciate you guys.
Yes.
Appreciate you.
All right, let's find a few more before we have to get out of here.
Yep.
Andrew Gilmore. Actually, here, let's do this one. Andrew Gilmore. Let's do this one.
Andrew Gilmore asks, should we make a change at punt returner? Faison has not looked confident. Obviously, he fumbled, but he also let a couple punts bounce against A&M.
I wouldn't just yet. If you think he's the best guy, I wouldn't just yet. I don't think the fumble was necessarily all on Jordan Faison. And if he's earned that spot, it's like anything else. Guy earns a spot over the course of a long period of time. You don't bench him because he has a bad game. And so I'll just say this, Trevor. Everything is on the table going into bye week, even if you win this game. Everything has to be reevaluated going into a bye to say, okay, do we have the right players, right scheme, right practice? I mean, Marcus Freeman says it, challenge everything. Mm-hmm. Well, when you haven't lived up to expectations so far in the season, everything's on the table.
Yes.
And when you go into the bye week. And so this is kind of a final audition for some guys before you go into that bye week period. But I wouldn't do that just yet. I'd give him one more game and see how he does and then go from there. But not quite yet.
I would too. I don't know. And this is true of any position, in my opinion. I don't think the answer is just as simple as benching somebody to put somebody else in there. I don't know what's happening from a special teams perspective of like the overall return scheme. I don't know if he's being told to fair catch things. I don't know if he's being told to let some of those things go, which is why the bye week is going to be so crucial, because those are going to be some of the things that you evaluate. I've seen a lot on Twitter. People are asking for Jeremiah Love to be the punt returner and the kick returner. And hey, guys, to Brian's point earlier, everybody has a shelf life. And if we're asking Jeremiah Love to get over 50% of all touches on the offense and now on special teams too, love the kid. And I think he can do great things for Notre Dame. But no, I also don't want to be the team that runs him into the ground.
Mm-hmm.
So lot of options. I would like to see Jaden Harrison back at punt returner. I think that would be something to look into. But I have no issues with
it's interesting. He's never done it. He was not the punt returner at Marshall. So part of me wonders if like there's something. Is there a reason why?
Yeah.
But if you're going to put someone other than Jaden Harrison back at kick returner, the answer is not Jeremiah Love. Guys, Jardarian Price was fantastic as a kick returner last year, right? Like, I know Jeremiah is a great player. Jeremiah Love might be their best offensive player. I mean, I don't dispute that discussion, but he's not the only great player, great talented player they have. So, just because he's your best doesn't mean you can, we're now going to do everything with him. Like, Jardarian Love's pretty flipping good too. Jaden Harrison was an All-American kick returner last year as well. Like,
100%.
There's other talented players, and the answer isn't always like Riley Leonard struggling. Put Jeremiah Love in. I bet he can throw. You know what I mean? It's just like, okay, guys. I've been so. Well, what if you put Jeremiah Love at boundary? Could he? I'm like, guys, it's a great running back. Like, let's let him do running back things for more than 2 or 3 games, and then we'll see kind of where things go. So. Just like, let's let him keep dominating where he's dominating and not overwork him to where then we're like, because then the same people doing that will be the ones that are like, this is why you shouldn't have, you know what I mean? Like, that's just kind of how it is. You did too much and you got hurt and, that type of thing. And it's like, guys, come on.
Yeah, a lot of people use Travis Hunter in that analogy. It's like, guys, Travis Hunter has to go do all of that because he has to.
Right.
And Notre Dame has enough talented players that Jeremiah Love doesn't have to do everything for the team. So, Yep.
And I still don't think that's good for Travis Hunter. I don't think that's good for Colorado, because I don't think he's as good at one side of the ball as he should be because of how much they overwork him. So, we'll see if Travis Hunter can do this for a course of a season, because we don't know that yet, because he couldn't last year. He got hurt, and he wasn't the same player in November as he was in September. So, just keep getting better at what you're doing. The answer, as I've said this a million times, the answer isn't always put somebody else in there. Sometimes it is. And if Jordan doesn't look comfortable back there in this game, then I would consider. I mean, again, Andrew, I'm not saying your submission is like, oh no, you're nuts, Jordan Faison's by far. I'm just saying, like, let's give him one more game and see how he does, because this was his first game back, after missing several weeks, being there. So
we are happily independent. Do you see Osbury or Bowen playing the same position against an athletic team? Do you think Junior is finally getting his new position, especially after Purdue?
Well, Notre Dame doesn't really have a Sam position. They have the only time they would potentially have that is if they go to a 3-down look. If they went to a 3-3 look, do I think Jaden Osbury and Jaden Osbury, Drake Bowen, and Kingston could all be in the field together, which means somebody would play the Sam? Yes, sir, Bob, absolutely. And I think they could all play Sam in that type of look. Thinking about like a rover type of thing, no, that's the closest thing they have to a Sam in their base defense would be the rover. They have a rover, Mike, and a Will. Jaden's athletic enough to play that, no doubt. Drake's an inside linebacker. I think Drake could probably play a little bit of Will. I think Mike is perfect for him. I think Kingston's a better Will than Drake is a Will, and that's why I like that combo at Mike and Will, with Drake at Mike and Kingston at Will. Is something I think we could maybe see a little bit more of against teams that want to run the ball a little bit more. Like against Army and Navy, I would hope that we're going to see a lot of Kingston and Drake on the field together. In that game would be something I would hope that we would see more of. And that's a game where you might have a Sam position that Jaden Osbury might be great at, is playing that triple option offense that Army's doing right now. Yeah, that actually would be fun to see.
Andrew Gilmore asks, if Louisville has 24 points on the scoreboard, does Notre Dame win the game?
I think so. I mean, I predict them to win 27. Trevor predicts them to score 28. So, I mean, yeah, I mean, if they play how we think they are, then sure. Yeah, they will.
Mm-hmm.
We have a super chat that I missed.
Super chat from Tyler Evans. Thank you, Tyler. Give me some schools and head coaches they believe it's time to depart for the better.
I mean, I don't really like doing that, to be honest with you, because I don't think that it's always better just because you're at a quote unquote better program or just because you're at a quote unquote higher paying job. It doesn't necessarily mean that you are going to a better situation, but some coaches that I think could be in line for, let's say some coaches that could be in line for some of those opportunities. I mean, what's funny is some of the guys that you would look at based on how they're playing this year are not going anywhere. Kyle Whittingham is not going anywhere. The head coach at BYU is not going anywhere.
No.
Let's see if Ken Satterfield can keep this going. Here's a coach that if he keeps doing what he's doing now, is Brett Bielema happy at Illinois, or has he kind of got his eye on getting back to a big time program?
I don't know.
Because that'll be an interesting one to see. Kurt Signetti in Indiana may not be long for Indiana if he keeps doing what he's doing now.
Yep.
Some bigger school, quote unquote, bigger school might be looking to poach him. I hope that Greg Schiano realizes how good he has it. He's the perfect example of what I'm talking about. Greg Schiano is a perfect fit for Rutgers. Like, that is the perfect school for him, in my opinion. And I don't want to see him go anywhere else. And so, I look at other places. I mean, there's a lot of coaches that have things to prove, in my opinion. Like the guy from Liberty's winning a lot, but again, that he inherited a pretty good roster, and they play no one. So it's like, how good of a coach is he really? I don't know that we know the answer to that. That's Jamie. Was it Chadwell, right? Or it's Chadwell, correct? Isn't that how you say his last name? I would have said Lance Leopold maybe if they were better, but they're not. They're not better right now. I don't know that Barry Odom at UNLV is going to get anywhere bigger because of the trouble he got in at Missouri, and he failed at that level and got Missouri in a little bit of trouble with some of the off the field stuff. So, yeah, I don't know. Here's an interesting. If Shane Beamer keeps this thing at South Carolina rolling, he might be someone that becomes attractive to a quote unquote bigger school. It's going to be fascinating to see which route Florida goes, and then what dominoes kick in based on that. If they hire another head coach, how does that, what does that kind of send in motion to kind of get things going is going to be very fascinating.
Yeah.
Very fascinating. So we're going to have to roll here, guys. Salty, you had a lot of great questions. I'm going to screenshot those and answer those on the board sometime later tonight. But I've got to go handle some stuff with Rita right now, and we have to get rolling. But there's still a lot of great questions left. Here's what I'm going to ask you guys to do. We have if you're on the message board, we have a mailbag thread. If I did not get to your question, could you guys go put that in that thread, and I'll go in later tonight, and we will both kind of give our opinions on those at some point in time tonight, because I am sorry we're not able to get to the rest of them, and there's still a lot of great questions. Aiden Regan's got one, Facilitate Inform, Notre Dame's Wine and Cheese, Ghost X. There's a lot of really good questions left. Joseph DeJager has a really good one about Michigan and all that. So I apologize that we can't get to all those guys. So if you could put those on the message board, we would greatly appreciate that in that thread that's already there, and we'll be able to get those knocked out. But Trevor, great job today, man. You nailed your first mailbag. So really appreciate you being with me today, and being a part of what we're doing before we got this thing rocking and rolling. We were having some fun conversations, and we're gonna have plenty more. So I'm really excited about that. But big game tomorrow, folks, and we'll have a post game show afterwards. Obviously, the guys will be there to talk about what we see, and I really hope we're in better spirits than maybe the last couple post game shows. So hopefully that Notre Dame gives people a reason to be excited about what's coming on and what's coming down the pike for Notre Dame. And then we'll have next week we'll talk a lot about where this team is and what needs to get fixed and what needs to get changed and where they got to maybe consider making some changes. We might actually even have some proposals on who needs to be kind of moved out of their positions depending on how the Saturday goes. Answer maybe nobody. Yeah. Anthony and Nat may come out and shut Louisville down. I'm like, okay, freshmen's figured it out. You know what I mean? But we'll have all those conversations next week during the bye week. So we'll still be doing shows during the bye week. We're just going to kind of obviously not have a game to prepare for. We'll have more of a reflective looking at Notre Dame type of conversation. So for Trevor, I'm Brian. Have an awesome rest of your week, everybody. And we'll see you all again very soon on the Irish Breakdown Podcast.